Testing 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
We should be baseball announcers, yeah.
Sanchez is batting 165. He needs to go back home to his mama.
Welcome to Table Talk, the show about beer, board games, and everything else. I am Rich.
And I'm Alex. And this month, we're talking about baseball. Oh, it's a high fly ball. And we caught it. Never mind. Rich, you're out.
Oh, well, that's very much in par with my
Oh, wait, but he dropped it, and now he's dribbling it. And Rich is...
He's running into the bullpen.
He's running around the bases. He's doing it again. We don't know why.
I don't think he understands how to play this.
You got to run to the right, sir, not to the left. You're running the wrong way. No, when you go home, you're not actually going home. It was very confusing for me as a child.
Run home, Rich. Run home,
Rich.
Oh my goodness, we're already off. This is great. We're talking about baseball. This has been long looked forward to by, I'm sure you, definitely. This is Alex's cup of tea, for sure. Alex is a big baseball fan. I hang in there as much as I can, but I'm donning the baseball cap.
It's a good cap.
And I am ready. I think I'm ready to talk about baseball finally. It took 31 years, but I think I'm ready to talk about it. I'm finally ready to get it off my chest. And speaking of my chest, I do have
Detroit baseball.
Detroit baseball. It's the only shirt that was available in my area, so I'm sorry if you're not a fan. What do you got? What's on your hat?
This is the Durham Bulls. This is the AAA affiliate minor league team of the Tampa Bay Rays. I am not necessarily a fan of the Rays, but this Durham Bulls is one of the local teams that's closest to where we live. And the Durham Bulls also are considered probably one of the more historically popular and famous minor league teams in the country. And they also have a movie about them, actually.
Really?
Bull Durham, starring Kevin Costner. So that was set in Durham, North Carolina. So there you go.
And I can tell you about my hat too, but let's actually get into the actual episode. So first of all, Alex, welcome back.
Thank you, Rich.
Welcome back to the show. How's fatherhood?
Fatherhood is great.
Yes.
I'm really appreciative of Rob. Rob, shout out to you, sir. You did great. Thank you for holding the fort, as it were, especially for World War II. That was really fascinating to listen to. And I would have not been at all productive at all in the conversation because I was kind of a blank stare of happy nothingness for the first couple weeks of recovery.
Good.
And heck, I didn't even have the kid, and I was still out of it a little bit. But Violet is doing well. She is now 5 weeks old and very cute. She coos on occasion, and
she coos.
She
like a pigeon.
A little bit less of the bobbing of the head and the general stare. Yeah, she doesn't do that. She doesn't stare you down like this or anything. But she's good. She knows what she wants, and she's good at expelling what she's supposed to expel, which is great.
Okay, good.
And Caroline's doing well, recovering, and
good.
We are good in the hood, and we do enjoy our time together, which is great. So
good. Happy parents. We're happy for you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to have you back on the show, and yes, thanks to Rob, my brother, for standing in for the World War II episode.
Yeah, Rob.
It's not really something it's going to be such a more lighthearted episode. This episode and this whole month, the series is so much lighter. I didn't realize it until we were shooting it, and definitely until I was editing it and getting it all up on YouTube and the podcast. But it was kind of a heavy topic that we didn't really think about going in.
Yeah.
And then once we were in there, we realized, wow, we really kind of have to tread lightly with this. So it was a different vibe usually than what we usually have. We're usually joking a lot, and we're usually, we're always looking for the puns, and we're always looking for, just kind of the jokes and stuff. But it really it hit us both, and I'm very glad we did it. I think it was a different tone that we both handled very well. But I'm happy to be talking about something that's a little bit more just lighthearted and fun, and it's literally a game. And I'm excited to just kind of relax a little bit and just talk about a sport. It's going to be a lot of fun. So before we start, just want to direct everybody to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to check out the YouTube channel, Table Talk with Rich and Alex. We're looking for those subscriptions, guys. We know people are watching them, but if you can, just do the like and subscribe. Do that whole bit for us. We appreciate that. It helps us out a lot. We want to keep making the show, and we want the show to be a success, which we are keep pushing for. So like, subscribe, help us out on that platform. And then if you're watching this, hi. Be sure to listen to the podcast version. You can get it on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify. I think we're up on Audible now. There's a lot of different places to find us. If you just type in Table Talk with Rich and Alex in Google, you can probably find us that way. And thanks to Buzzsprout for hosting that podcast for us, and thanks to YouTube for hosting our channel there. But go check us out on either of those options. Links in the description for the breweries that we're going to talk about. We're going to share our beer here in a second, but links in the description for the breweries, the board game information, which we'll introduce here in a second. There's also going to be a nice little how to play YouTube that we're going to share with you in the description as well. We're going to talk about a very interesting baseball game that I'm excited to talk about. We're not going to show you how to play it 100%, but there is a nice little YouTube channel that I'm going to direct you to that taught me how to play it, and I'm going to pass that on to you guys. So before we get to that, though, I'm very excited because this is your wheelhouse, Alex. So I'm interested to see what type of beer you got.
Dude. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to the only brewing company in the United States, at least that I saw, that is within a baseball stadium. Meet Bull Durham Beer. This is the Bull Durham Beer Company. You want to talk about a great size for a baseball game? This is 19.2 ounces. So this is not your usual 12 that you'll find. Like, this is something that'll get you at least through the third, fourth inning, etc.
That's a commitment.
This is, in fact, it's the only one I could find at the time because I don't think the stadium's open right now. This is the light version. However, I'll be very curious how this goes. But I've been wanting to try this for a long time. And in Durham, the Durham Bulls have this brewing inside their park. So it is the beer of choice when you go to a baseball game. So yeah, that's what they've been doing, and I've been wanting to try it for a long time. And what better way to celebrate baseball than an actual baseball beer? So
I like it. I like it. I like the design too. Hold that up.
Isn't it nice?
I want to. Yeah, it's a beer. It's a beer glass, but it looks like a bowl. I like that. That's cool.
What did you get?
I found a nice little brewing company here in Grand Rapids called the Mitten Brewing Company.
Ooh.
So that's that.
Mitten Brewing very Company. Good.
So I guess this is a question for you, Alex. Mitten, is that a proper name for a baseball glove or a mitt?
It would be mitt.
Okay, because I had that's the one thing that I questioned about this was I understand it's Michigan. It's called the Mitten State because it looks like a hand, right?
Right.
I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for with that. I like it regardless, right? I'm just saying the only thing I wanted to clarify with you is mitten is not a proper term for a baseball glove, correct?
Correct. If you said I brought my baseball mitten, they might laugh at you.
Yeah. Okay. But no, this is it's a great little place. So Grand Rapids, Michigan, the Mitten Brewing Company. It's a vintage baseball themed microbrewery that expertly pairs handcrafted beers with gourmet pizza.
Ooh.
So we pair beer with board games. They pair beer with pizza. Somebody else pairs pizza with board games. So it's a vicious circle.
Oh man.
I haven't been there yet. Obviously, #COVID. We haven't really been able to get out and about, but I did look at their website. I saw some of their pizzas. Whenever we get a chance to go out and check out the Mitten Brewery, company. I want to try out these pizzas, these baseball themed pizzas. There's a veggie pizza called Field of Greens.
Ooh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And then there is a goat cheese pizza called Curse of the Goat. Yep.
Nice baseball nod there.
Yep. Yeah, it's so the beer I'm drinking is called West Coast Swing. It's an amber ale. Amber. I like amber ales. I obviously like tasting beer more than I like looking at it, but amber ales are very nice and pretty. Nice little red color, so I like that. It was a gold medal winner at the 2018 Great American Beer Festival. It has subtle caramel and crisp amber malt notes enveloped in a malty and smooth body. There you go. So that's my beer.
Okay.
You want to pour?
Yeah. So, and just so you guys know who are listening, so this is a light ale, and I did want to give a little description based on what you were on yours,
okay.
At least for mine. So it's brewed with German Huhl melon hops. This easy-to-drink brew will deliver the craft flavors you love with almost half the calories, coming in less than 100 for a 12-ounce pour.
Nice. All right.
Oh,
but you
that's
got
that.
How much do you have there though? You have 19 though.
I know that's the thing is they have it in very small script, calorie count based on 12-ounce serving. So
yeah,
I feel like that's so American.
And Rob left his mark. My brother left his mark on the show because he had a Purdue Peak glass that he was drinking out of.
Ooh.
And his gift to me was
look at that
little Ball State chirp beer glass. So ready?
Yeah.
Probably not a good idea to do this over my computer, but I trust myself.
Gently, sir. Heck, this may last the whole conversation.
Yeah, mine looks so puny compared to yours. All right, there you go.
Cheers.
Welcome back to the show, Alex. Here, let me tell you. So, did you know? So my hat is courtesy of Alex here. A nice little gift from a good friend. I didn't know who it was. It's called the Beer City Bung Hammers. And Beer City obviously being the nickname given to Grand Rapids, due to some type of reason that I'm not really sure why. They won some type of competition some point in the history, and then declared themselves the Beer City capital of the world.
I like that.
Yeah. So so I actually looked into this. So the Beer City Bung Hammers are just it's like their alter ego. It's the Whitecaps. It's the
So I see what you're saying.
It's the single A ball club that's here in Grand Rapids that feeds into the Detroit Tigers, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're the same team, but why are they called the Beer City Bung Hammers like one day out of the year? And I looked into it, and this is pretty cool. So the Whitecaps wanted to embrace the Grand Rapids thriving craft beer culture by changing their name to the Beer City Bung Hammers on Salute to Beer City Night. So basically, one day in 2018, they just decided to change the team's name for the night, change the logo, change the whole design to the Beer City Bung Hammers. And then they just go right back to being the Whitecaps after that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's basically just to kind of celebrate the culture of the city. And then what is a bung hammer, you may ask? So it's basically a specialized tool for sealing and unsealing the bung in the side of a barrel when aging craft beer. So
okay,
to answer the question of what is a bung is a wooden stopper for the opening in a barrel. So the bung hammer is used to fit the bung into the bung hole of a barrel. So you have the bung, which is like this thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
and
the
then
cork.
You have the bung hammer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a cork. So you have the bung and you have the bung hammer. That's what's going on here.
Got it.
Usually it's not swung by a glass of beer, but
not usually. Yeah, that seems a little little paradoxical,
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. A bung hammer is an important tool in the barrel aging of beer, and the use of the bung hammer looks a lot like the swinging of a baseball bat, as you can see. So that's why they chose it.
I like that. Yeah. I like that, man.
So did you know all of that when you sent it to me? Or
No,
did
I
you
didn't.
just take a look for it?
I did look up because I think this is actually a really fun thing to do, especially with minor leagues. But we'll get into that later. I do tend to look up what are the closest minor league teams because you usually can find one.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the Whitecaps were I think they're in Grand Rapids, or at least nearby.
Yeah.
So I thought, it'd be fun to give him a homecoming present. And then originally I was just going to get you a Whitecaps hat, and then I noticed that one, and I thought, well, it's destiny, so we got to go with
I like
that.
this so much. I like this so much more. There's such a cool story behind it, and I honestly I wouldn't have even known about it until I got the hat, and I was like, what is this?
Happy homecoming.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. All right, I'm really excited about this game.
Yeah.
When I say the title of the game, Baseball Highlights 2045, what just comes to mind for you?
Blade
Let's
Runner.
just start there.
It's what people are watching in Blade Runner universe.
That's actually
Baseball
probably not
2045.
too. That's probably not too far off, to be honest. Anything specific though that besides Blade Runner that comes?
I don't
to
know, Hans Zimmer, trombone score in the back. When I don't know, robots or whoever show up and start swinging the bat. I would also assume that like steroids would have been legal by that point, so everyone's just
Yeah.
ripped.
Yeah. Got it. You're really not that far off.
Am I
to
not
be
far off?
completely
Okay,
honest.
well
you're really not.
Yeah.
You're really not. What type of baseball game, like analog style, have you played, if any? Have you played any type of like?
Not analog. I mean, video games.
Okay.
Sure, I've played plenty
Right.
of those, but never an analog baseball game, which was super curious when you mentioned about this game.
Yeah, so the first thing that came to my mind was a little game that we had when I was a kid. It was like a little miniature kind of like pinball type of thing that you had, and you could like flick it, right? It kind of worked like pinball, but like you could tilt it and pitch the ball to yourself with it like that, and then you'd flick the bat and it would hit it, and
I remember this.
Yeah, you aimed for different things to get like a single or a double or a home run or something like that. So that's the first thing that came to mind when I heard about like an analog type of baseball game, which, to be honest, I wasn't very excited about. But I did some research. I'm really happy with this. This is one of the first games that, unfortunately, I haven't actually gotten my hands on. So obviously, we're not experts. We say that all the time. We're not experts. We don't pretend to be about either beer, board games, or really anything that we're talking about in general. But this is a game that, honestly, I haven't played yet. I want to play it so badly now that I understand it and that I've seen some videos on it. So if you have played it, let us know what you like about it. Let us know what you don't like about it. We're very interested to hear your opinion about that. This is kind of one of the first episodes where we don't have a lot of experience with the game we're actually talking about, but I want to get my hands on this as soon as possible. So here, let's dive into it without any further ado.
Yeah. What are about those ados anyway?
There's too many ados.
Dude, this was wild.
All right, so this is the cover shot. Baseball Highlights 2045. All right,
so cool.
Yeah, so you weren't far off with the robots, to be honest, because that's kind of what we're looking at here. So 1 to 4 players, 45-minute playing time for ages 9 and up. The designer is Mike Fitzgerald. Artist is William Bricker. Published by Eagle Griffin Games in 2015. So let me set the stage for you, Alex. Okay. Because the theme is important in any game, but I like the theme of this game so much. I'm basically gonna read out basically what the whole story is.
Tell me. I'm hanging on the edge of my seat now.
Okay. All right. So American baseball has fallen out of popularity, and other sports have taken over as America's official pastime. This is in the year like 2030. Okay.
Okay.
So, other sports have taken over as America's official pastime. That is until the year 2032, when the game was shortened to 6 innings, and pitchers were encouraged to have bionic arm implants to improve their pitching. Cyborgs, as they came to be known, became increasingly popular in the league, and interest in the sport began to climb yet again. So in 2041, robotic players were introduced, fully robotic players, so not even somewhat human. Fully robotic players were introduced to compete against cyborg pitchers. Robots could only hit, however, and could not play in the outfield. So in 2045, human players are still in the game, and they're now known as naturals. They are the best fielders by far, but are less effective at hitting and pitching. Getting drafted into the league as a natural is much harder, but those who do are very popular and are compensated very well. Many naturals are known to name themselves after great players of the past. Fans love them, and their presence on the team ensures good revenue. So that's the setting right there. All right. Let me ask you, before we dive into it now, Alex. Sorry, you're on this screen now for me, so I'm looking over here, but you're still there.
Hello.
So just so far, okay. As a baseball fan, how do you feel about this? Because
when's the movie coming out? That's what I want to know. Seriously, like this is a really good idea.
Yeah, I like this a lot, but obviously I'm not like a traditional, what you would consider a traditional baseball fan. I like the sport. I've just never really followed it very heavily. I would have thought, I mean, I've done research on this. Baseball fans love this game, but I would have thought the whole concept of robots playing baseball would have been off-putting to fans. Do you think that?
Yeah.
Well, you think that's a thing?
It's a hypothetical because, baseball fans, we all have this belief that our sport will be forever undying. Basically, it's the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, baseball.
In that
if one of those threes goes away, the next step is just the whole country will fall apart. So, like in our mind, we're like, yeah, sure, maybe in decline, but it's going to come back. It's just, football's in its twilight era, and baseball will come back. So I think that there's a stubbornness, but a beautiful stubbornness that robots would not take over as that. Plus, it's like, I mean, do you really want to watch robot? Because you like watching the human be able to do it, but I'll explain why.
Right. Okay. I'm interested in that perspective. That's why I brought it up. So, but let's continue. That's the story. That's the setting. Okay.
Dude, this is so cool.
All right. So the goal of the game is to win the series. So obviously you'll see the games on the right, the 0 to 4. So it's a 7-game series. The first player to win 4 games, or mini games, wins the game, the actual game. This is kind of the traditional 2-player setup that we got here. There's a lot of different rules about playing with 3 players and 4 players, but the beauty of this is that you can kind of play like tournament style, or you can play basically just like seasons and then have like a World Series like playoff if you decide to play it a little bit longer than 45 minutes. But you can like compete against each other and like sit down and actually play a whole bunch of different series together with a few different people. The game operates like a highlight reel, so meaning it's not overly tactical or bogged down with outs, innings, or play-by-play simulation. So it doesn't play like a game would. Honestly, it plays it. You're kind of going through kind of the big points in the game, like you're hitting the highlight reel. It's kind of why it's called the baseball highlights. It's a card game, so the key mechanism is hand management. It's been kind of called a deck building game, but I don't think it's really that as much as it is hand management, because you're kind of choosing what type of cards you're going to have in your hand. I like that hand management concept a little bit more. You'll probably understand what I'm talking about once we get into it. So each player picks a deck or a team. So you have different starting teams that come with the starter box, basically. I'm not really sure what those 4 teams are, but they're basically kind of the same cities that have baseball teams now, like Chicago and Boston and all these different plays. And then you can see the flag, or is that what do you call that? A pennant at the top?
Pennant. Yep.
Yeah. So you'll see their pennant at the top. So you basically, each player starts with a team. Each deck represents a 15-card roster of active players. At the end of each minigame, players are bought or drafted from the buy row, which is represented in this picture on the left here. So this is the buy row. This is the players that you can draft into your team, replacing one of the cards in your 15-card roster. So once you draft a card over here, it goes into the team, and then you can only have 15 cards total, so you got to send one of these players to the minor leagues. So you basically you're constantly switching out cards in your hand. You're drafting from the left these better players, and this basic deck that you start off with, you kind of take cards out of that and take them out of the game or send them to the minor leagues, as it's said.
That's cool.
Yep. The player who manages their team the best by drafting the better cards and utilizing their upgraded abilities in the mini games will win the game. Okay, so that's kind of the general setup there. So the way it works, out of the 15 cards that you have, okay, you draw 6 cards from your deck to play the first game. All right, so you only draw 6 cards. All right, 6 cards out of the 15, so you're not sure what you're going to get in that first game. Each card offers either a defensive or an offensive action. Better cards offer both. So defensive actions are settled first, then offensive actions are threatened in a way. So I'll get more into that, but let's just kind of explain what the card looks like here. So we got Willie Mcguire, Nolan Gooden, Kong 35. So I'm sure there's a lot of joke like references in here. Alex, I'll leave it to you to kind of tell me what those references are. But I know some of these players are named after actual players.
Yeah, so Willie Mcguire is Willie Mays and Mark McGuire. Willie Mays played for the New York Giants, and then they became the San Francisco Giants later on.
Okay.
And then Mark McGuire was the home run king of 98.
90s. Yeah.
1998. Nolan, I'm assuming Nolan Gooden is referring to Nolan Ryan. Yeah, he used to play for the Rangers, Texas, and a few other teams, I think. Gooden, I'm not sure. And Kong 35, no idea.
Look at that thing, though. It's like the thing from the Wild West movie with
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. That's what it reminds me of.
I love how
anyway.
unhumanoid it is. It's just like it looks like a lawnmower with a bat.
It's not even trying to blend in. Okay, so I'll go over kind of the card anatomy here. So the top left is obviously the player's name, and I think it has the team that they're playing for, or that they belong to, even though you're going to draft them or trade for them in the game. Top right is how much the player costs to draft them. All right. The top right green is how much the player makes for you. So if you play that card in a mini game, it gives you a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
The plaque bar down here, I'll just use the middle one. This little plaque bar is the defensive action that it takes. All right. So this is the defensive action this card gives you, and then underneath that, all the gray bars or the gray boxes are the offensive threats that they'll threaten to basically perform if they're not blocked by the other team. Okay, the bottom left is the speed. So you have fast players, you have average players, and you have slow players, and that's represented by these colored pawns up here.
Okay.
Pinch hitter lets you swap out another card for a different card if you decide to do that, which I'll explain later on. But if they're a pinch hitter, then it'll show you in the middle of the card at the bottom. Okay. All right, moving on. So here's the pawn, the base running pawns. So white is the slow runner. So white, it advances the number of bases equal to the hit. So if you hit a single, whites can only go one base at a time as a single. It's a single hit. Mm-hmm. Blue does the same thing. It's an average runner. It moves, if you hit a single, then it moves one space. If it moves a double, you can move 2 spaces, just like the white pawn. The only difference is that if a blue pawn is on second base or in scoring position, and you hit a single, then the blue will score. If it's white, it just moves to third base. If it's blue, it actually scores that run if it's a single. Red is the faster runner, and it advances one more base than the hit. So if you hit a single, it can move 2 bases. If you hit a double, it moves 3 spaces. And if you hit a triple, it basically scores.
Batter up.
So the visiting team bats first, per tradition, right? For instance, this visiting team already has the bases loaded. It's threatening 3 single hits, so just shown by the card here. So this player has played this card. There's no defensive action to block the other player, whatever they're doing over there, but it does give them three single hits. So they put 3, and it's a slow player, as we can see by the card. So they take 3 white pawns and put them on home plate. So now the other player has to play a card that is defensive on their board, which is off screen up there. Okay. If the other player cannot defend against all 3 of these hits, then the visiting team will score at least 2 runs. That'll be a single getting this guy in and this guy in. Okay. Because average speed can, in a scoring position on a single hit, can score. This guy goes to second base. All right. One of these guys goes to first base. All right. Then on the next single, everybody rotates again. And then on another single, bases are going to be basically loaded again. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's 3 singles. So these all 3 of these are going to score, and then these 3 guys basically load up all the bases again. That's assuming the other player doesn't have a card that stops one of those runs from getting in.
It seems as though once when you actually see it visually displayed in action, logically progresses. And the great thing is, like, if you understand baseball, which I would say you would at least understand the concept of you're going around the bases and this is a score.
And the cool thing about it is that you're constantly playing offense and defense. So you're every card you play, obviously not this one. This one's strictly just offense. But almost every card you play is going to have a defensive action to stop something from happening that the other player's doing. Let's go back to the other. Okay, this is better. Okay, so whoever goes first, the visitor goes first. He plays this defensive move, which doesn't do anything because it's his first move, and then he gets a single, an average speed single. So he puts a blue player here. So now he has an offensive thing going on here. This player has to play something defensive to maybe get this blue player off of the board for this guy.
Got it.
And he does an offensive move, which gives him 2 pawns on here. So now this guy has to play something defensive and offensive. So you're constantly thinking in both terms, defense and offense at all points in time.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yep. And then you basically play until all 6 cards are used. So it's only 6 cards that you get to play in one game. All 6 cards are used. And then whoever has the most points obviously wins the game. And then you move your game token. And then all the cards that you played, all 6 of those cards that you've played, you count the green number in all of those cards, and that's how much money you have. So this is a 0, right? So this is probably a good card, but it doesn't give you any money. All right. This guy, it looks like a pretty decent card, and it gives you money. So it gives you 2 money. So you count up all the money that you have in those 6 cards, and then you can buy one of these cards for the next game. So you can. So this player is cost 5. This player costs 6. This player costs 10, right? So if you play cards that give you 10 green points, then you can buy this guy the next time.
Super cool.
So there are. Oh wow, it's really pixelated. I apologize. So there's some expansions. The expansion that looks the coolest to me is the coach expansion. So obviously all the expansions provide new teams and new players. So you can collect all the teams. You can collect all the players. You can definitely do that, but the one that looks the coolest to me was the coach expansion. So it helps. It kind of plays around with hand management rules, and it kind of dives deeper into baseball strategy, kind of like those plays that you're talking about. So you can do like a double. It'll let you do like a double steal, a triple play. It helps you out with like it puts in like a bullpen management aspect into the game. Helps you out with scouting, so you like maybe you get some scouting points, so you can buy a player that you otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. It's not only as the game by itself seems really interesting, but the expansions to it seem like they add on different elements.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
Do they have a snacks version? Oh my gosh, this art! Look at this art.
Yeah. Look at that arm. I like that arm. The cyborg arm. Yeah,
I'd hate to be the catcher in this game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the game is pretty clear that there's 3 different types of players. You have robots, you have cyborgs that are half robot, half person, and you have the naturals, which are the regular players, right? And obviously robots are going to be better at hitting, cyborgs are better at pitching, and naturals are better at fielding. They don't yet have a robot that can field very well, apparently. But they didn't say anything about the catcher. So I don't know. It looks like a natural to me, right?
Yeah, it does. It also looks like Mr. Met is right above his head.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep, there you go. And look at this. They're selling out. Baseball's back in business now.
Baseball's back.
So here's the reason I like it, and obviously I'm saying I like it having not played it, which I understand is a little bit controversial, but the reason I like it as a game, I'm a pretty good judge of board games at this point. If I'm confident in anything I say on this show, I'm fairly confident about board games that I like and board games that I don't, even if I haven't played them. So the reason I like it, number one is that it has a great theme. So although it may be, I don't know if it's controversial or not as a baseball game, but I think it's a good theme to play with. It's futuristic. It's I don't think dystopian is the right word, but it's definitely it takes it to a level that makes it so much more interesting, right, than just straight baseball.
Yeah.
And it does a good wink to, actual baseball teams and actual baseball players while kind of adding to the story of baseball, I think. So I think it's fun. It sticks to board game mechanics, good board game mechanics. So you're not just flicking a thing, right? You're not just playing with like a pinball and flicking something. You're not just rolling dice. There are random factors to this, but the idea of a card game really made sense to me when I came across this, right? Because baseball and cards go together like ham and cheese to me. It seems like
they do,
right? Yeah. So having it be a card game and having like the baseball art on the card and everything, it just seemed like a good decision to me. So the mechanic of the hand management and deck building seemed to go together really well. It's really simple. Honestly, I don't ever feel like I do a very good job of explaining it. It's not that the whole point of the show isn't to make you proficient in this game right away. It's just to kind of introduce the concept to you. But it is very simple, trust me. Once you kind of sit down to see how it's played, it's very simple. It's expandable. It's flexible. You can play it by yourself, like a solitaire game, or you can play it with up to 3 other friends. I think it's definitely something worth checking out. And yeah, I think one of us should definitely get our hands on this next time we're together. We should play a series, see who wins.
I will only do it if we then have robots try to go hit balls after that.
We should try to make our own robot that can
dress them up as a baseball player. Yeah. Take them on our shows. See if we can get them in the minor leagues. That'll be good for starters.
Yeah. Look how fast that ball's going too. Goodness.
I know.
It's Mach 1.
It's so cool.
You like it?
Yeah, dude, I love it. And I can just see Ryan Gosling as the Blade Runner assassin in the background watching it right before he goes and takes out some robots.
Oh man. Baseball Highlights 2045. Go check it out. So that's the baseball game. That's the beer and the board game. We're going to close out the episode by talking about the different discussion topics that we're going to be going through this month. Everything that we're going to be talking about this month and in the upcoming weeks. Before we do that, though, I think it's appropriate for us, kind of 3/4 of the way through the episode, to just take a 7th inning stretch.
Yep.
You want to? All right. And we should get the music for this too. So yeah, you can do it.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Stretch it, Rich. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never go back. Watch the quad and it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. Watch your ankle for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes. You're out of the old ball game.
Thanks. I needed that.
I always love that the fact that the 7th inning is one of those 7th inning stretch is a thing that everyone thinks is silly, and yet we all do it. And it is.
I don't think it's
wonderful.
Silly. I don't think it's silly at all. I think it's fun.
It is fun.
It's like halftime, but it is not.
But it's not halftime, which is fantastic. It's in the 7th inning, which is great.
It's like 3/4 of the way. It's like baseball just said, like, you know what? Screw halftime. We're just like the first game. They're like, we're not going to have a halftime.
No halftime.
We're not going to have it. No breaks. And then they got like 3/4 of the way through the game. They're like, are you guys a little tired? I'm a little tired.
I think tired, man. I want to stretch. I'm tired of sitting. Yep. That's the way to do it.
Oh man. All right. So thanks for watching, guys. Let's go through the discussion topics really quick. Everything to look forward to here in the next few weeks. Next week, Alex and I are gonna do a little conversational pitch and catch. I've already hinted at the fact that I do not know nearly enough about baseball. I have some questions lined up for you, Alex. Some of them are, I will admit, are softballs. So we'll probably start off with a little soft. But then I did find some pretty interesting trivia questions for you as well. So
see if I can withstand it.
Yeah, take the next few days and try and figure out if you can read every baseball book that you can here before next episode. The episode after that, episode 3, is going to be, we're going to talk about our baseball favorites.
Oh yeah.
What type of favorite things do you want to talk about, Alex?
I'm up for favorite memories from baseball childhood.
Baseball childhood.
Favorite childhood memories about baseball. Your favorite player is something I was thinking about. Your favorite play, just in general, to either do it yourself or just experience to see. Favorite stadium, favorite team, favorite minor league, because that can be fun. Other potentials. Favorite mascot, team name, favorite position, favorite place to sit for a game, favorite place on a baseball field, and I'll explain those later. Favorite baseball snack, and I've thrown it out there. Some sort of stadium tally is always kind of fun.
Tallying up where we've been, what we've done.
Correct.
All right.
So those I think I would be down to talk about.
Got my peanuts.
There you go.
Can't be a baseball show without peanuts.
Why can't we find Cracker Jacks at grocery stores? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, we got the peanuts. We kept the peanuts. We decided to do away with the Cracker Jacks. So,
yes,
peanuts. They were both here for a certain period of time, right? And then somehow, you had peanuts, you had Cracker Jacks, and all of a sudden it just kind of did this.
Poor Cracker Jacks. They're
peanuts
far
became
behind.
So much more popular. I will say, you never saw a Cracker Jack with a top hat and a cane and a monocle.
That is true. Maybe that's where they went wrong. It's some little kid with a dog or something.
Yeah.
You ain't selling out you're not gonna oversell against that versus a peanut with a monocle. You're always gonna go the peanut with a monocle.
Well, maybe there's some like hidden story about why the peanut became so obviously rich and the Cracker Jack came down here. Maybe they had a separation. Maybe there was a falling out of some sort between the peanut and the Cracker Jack.
It's all peanuts, man. Considering, but
if that's the case, Mr. Peanut is not shy about showing how much wealth he has. He's a little pretentious, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, he's still wearing a monocle in this 2021, so there is that to be considered as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain part of me that's like respect, but then there's another part of me that's like, it's a monocle.
I can see you show up for a job interview. So where do you find yourself in 5 years? I see myself the owner of the peanut company.
That's how we dressed for the interview.
Right. But you're like really nicely dressed. You don't explain why, and then well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Pardon me. You open the little bag, pull up the top hat, and then a little. Let me do that again because they're always doing that in shows with the monocle. And then you go from there. See what happens.
Talk about dress for success.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Dress for the job you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Last episode of the month is not going to be about peanuts and Cracker Jacks, although it seems like it could have been.
Could have been.
We're going to talk about the topic that Alex and I always end up talking about, which is movies. I always love Alex's perspective on movies, so I want to talk about it at every chance I get with him. So we're going to talk about the best baseball movies. I'm even going to throw in a few baseball movies that I think are pretty bad as well. So, but I will say that there's a huge caveat for this whole month, right? Rich doesn't really know a lot about baseball. So let's just say it right at the top. Like, we honestly, this should just be the let's film this, all right? And we'll just put this at the beginning of every episode. Rich doesn't really know what he's talking about at any point in time. Okay, so that goes double with baseball. I'm probably gonna make a few jokes. If anything is in bad taste, if anything seems like it's anti-baseball, it's really not. I appreciate the sport. I'm a fan generally of sports in general, right? I don't watch curling, but I respect the game, right? I get it. I understand the strategy. It's not something I tune into every time it's on. Same with baseball, right? I like it. Although I do have a season pass this year. I was just telling Alex before the show. I did get my first MLB season pass, so I will be watching every single Major League Baseball.
Congratulations, my man.
I won't watch all of them, but I will follow a few teams probably.
In the words of Obi-Wan, it is your first step in a larger world.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it is. It honestly is. And that's why I did it. I wanted to get a little deeper into baseball just because this show got me kind of really interested in it. So I'm excited about that. But that's the discussion topics moving forward. Next week we're going to be doing a conversational pitch and catch, kind of get me up to speed with some baseball information here, get some of my burning questions answered. And then after that, we're going to do the favorites episode, and then we're going to end the month with the baseball movies and stories. I think we're even going to probably pitch a movie idea to each other, aren't we? Are we doing that?
Did you do that? Up for pitching it to you. See if it'll be a hit.
Wait for it. Got my glove. Do you bring your glove?
Here we go. All right, here we go. Ready?
You pitch.
Yeah. Oh,
nice
snap! Yeah, crossing 7 state lines, or however many we are apart from each other.
Yeah, we're doing a conversational pitch and catch. That's the discussion topic for today. I'm going to be pitching a lot of questions at Alex. Do you want to do it? Here.
Yeah. Ready?
Go. Nice. It was a little slower than I wanted it to be. I was trying to get there. My fastball is a little.
It's your changeup, man. It's okay.
Use the changeup. Yeah, I always use the changeup. That's my go-to pitch. Is the changeup. But we are
change from what? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
That's
change up. It's a change up from what? From anything that could be considered a pitch, an actual pitch. But yeah, man. I finished last episode kind of declaring my ignorance of the sport in general. So I do have some questions about the sport. And Alex, being the master that he is going to answer all of those questions without any fail.
You don't know the sport of baseball, then. It's built on failure.
There you go.
I'll explain later. Yeah.
All good things are built on failure. I like that. But I have a long laundry list of questions for you, Alex, that I am going to say 3. If you get 3 of these questions wrong, then you lose. That's the game.
This could be a short episode, folks.
3 strikes and you're out. And then, the episode's over. So we're going to, hopefully we can get to questions 6 or 9. I'll start you out with some softballs here.
All right.
How many strikes until you're out? I know
3.
this. I know you might need to think about it for a little while. So take your time.
I'm gonna 3 is my final answer. Yeah,
3. Okay. I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm just that is true. 3 strikes and you're out. Okay. Serious questions now. This is an honest to God question. That little thing on the pitcher's mound. What do you call that?
The rubber.
The little strip. You call that the rubber?
Yeah.
And is that literally just to you put the pitcher puts his back foot on that to get leverage when he's throwing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a leverage thing.
That. I knew that.
And there was in Little League, for those of you who are listening, you probably know that Little League fields are not, Fenway Park. So the rubber usually has like a crater underneath the front of it, because all the kids are not even using it for pitching. They're just kind of digging their toe and scratching at it because you're a kid and there's nothing to do and you're waiting on the ball and that kind of thing. So
yeah. Did you collect baseball cards when you were a kid?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
How many did you have?
Oh gosh. We'll say between 150 and 300.
150 and 300. Really?
Yeah, between those numbers, I would say.
Did you have a favorite one? Did you like have one that like nobody could touch or even like nobody could look at?
Probably one of my favorites was not even mine. It was my dad's. He had a Mickey
Mm.
Mantle baseball card,
Okay.
and it
Nice.
was like encased in that like protective.
Yeah, the plastic.
Yeah, that was always cool to see. I think I had like a Cal Ripken card or something like
Yeah.
that. Not a rookie card, but
Did you have anything that was signed, or was your dad's card signed?
No,
No.
I never had anything signed. Mickey Mantle's card wasn't signed.
You didn't have like the Sandlot situation where like you.
Baby Ruth.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Wonder if somebody has like a Babe Ruth candy bar that has a Babe Ruth signature on it. Wonder if that's
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Everybody wants him to sign a baseball, but I'd want him to sign the candy bar.
He'd probably appreciate that.
Yeah. So just a few more general questions, just things I want to know about you, and we'll cover probably some of this in the favorites episode next week. But what position did you play when you were a kid?
As a left-handed person, first base was the way to go.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Why do they? I think I understand this, but you can probably explain it a lot better. Why left-handed people at first base? Why is that such a match made in heaven?
Because when you are stretching out to reach a pitch, you can use essentially the most amount of body square footage to stretch out, and you're not going against your body, which can happen. So because
the ball's coming from your left for the most part.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, it's always better to have your body facing the action of where it is, right? In a sport game in general, but in particular baseball. So if I'm able to, hold my hand out like that and actually snag it, then I'm still like able to view everything. Whereas, for a right-handed first baseman, that base runner could be running towards you and you have no idea what's coming. So
what if it's coming from the outfield? If you're throwing to first base from the outfield, wouldn't you want to be right-handed in that situation?
It is true. However, very rarely, if a baseball, especially in Little League, if a baseball has reached the outfield, it's usually going to be a double or a single.
Okay.
It's not going to
more than a single.
A single is a given. They're not going to throw to first usually. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. See?
Yeah.
We're only about 5 minutes into this episode. I'm already learning things.
It's good. It's good. Yeah. This is what it's all about.
And while we're talking, if you haven't noticed our hats, go back to episode 1 and listen to us talk about our hats. I got the Beer City Bung Hammers on my hat, and what was yours again? It's the same as your beer, right?
The Durham Bulls. Yeah. It's the same team as where this beer company comes from.
Look at you coordinating. That's so great.
Oh yeah. It's fun.
Okay, so now we're kind of getting into actual baseball questions that I literally have about baseball that I haven't gotten answers to.
Okay.
All right. So we're not into the statistics and stuff like that where I'm trying to stump you yet. This is just stuff I want you to weigh in on because it's kind of stumped me for about 31 years. Okay.
Okay.
So looking at a baseball, lacings on a baseball. This has always fascinated me. The way the baseball is laced.
Okay.
Can you explain to me why is it laced the way it is? I understand why the laces exist for gripping for a pitcher. I don't understand why it's designed like this. Why not just put like a straight lace like down the middle of the ball? Why is it like this? Do you know?
I actually don't know why it does the thing.
Yeah.
That. I do know what's inside, which I spent a summer one time unraveling a basebore. Yeah. So inside is like yarn, cork, almost like a really hard rubber ball. More yarn, more wool, more cork, more, kind of thing. The level of what's inside a baseball is actually pretty interesting. In terms of the lacing, I don't exactly know why they do the kind of the cross section, other than that my guess is that with the amount of force that bats hit balls, that if you just did straight lacing, my guess is that there's a higher potential of the lacing itself to tear, or get beat up, but baseballs are hardy folk, right? They can, usually knocking the cover off a ball very hard, if not impossible. So that's my guess, and usually it's raised like what you said. As far as I understand, it's for the pitcher's benefit, so you actually have some maneuverability with the grip and how to be able to throw a curve versus a fastball versus a changeup versus a knuckleball and etc.
Do you have a baseball in front of you, don't you?
I do.
Do you know
a very cheap, but nonetheless, one that I've had for a few years, a Rawlings baseball. I don't know, bought it at Modell's or Dick's or something.
Looks like it's got grass stains on it and everything. Mine.
Oh yeah.
Mine is like barely used.
You can see this is come undone. Yeah.
Do you know any of the grips specifically for like any type of pitch?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So this is a 4-seam fastball. So 4-seam is just essentially that you're gripping the ball so that your fingers are touching 1, 2, 3, 4 seams. So you can think. And then of course there's a 2-seam fastball, which this is rather fun. So you see the seam like this? You just literally grab it like so. So it kind of hooks it like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And then knuckle. That one's easy because everyone as a kid messes around with it and no one can actually do it right. But it's actually, but what's cool is with a knuckle is that there's no spin on the ball, so that
it just flies like this.
Right. If you can do it well, what it means is that there's less velocity for the batter to actually work with. So it's actually harder. It tends to be harder to actually get some momentum on the ball, unless of course you're the 2003 Yankees when Tim Wakefield from the Boston Red Sox, who's expert at knuckleballs, pitches a knuckleball like in the 8th inning of the championship series, and the New York Yankees, home run, and the series is over. So,
wow.
So that's a 2-seamer, knuckle, and then a curve usually is you almost essentially like almost bend it. You spin ever so slightly with the wrist, and the idea is that again the ball is coming at you like this and then goes like this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do a slider. I sure as heck don't know how to throw a screwball.
Screwball is when it's doing this.
Yeah, it basically does a little thing.
It kind of like jolts around.
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually expert pitchers like a Max Scherzer or Garrett Cole is gonna be able to pitch at least 2 or 3 really, really, really well.
Okay.
I think like Steven Strasburg, for instance, he pitches for the Nationals. He's an exceptionally good. I think it's curveball. Oh, and changeup. Of course, there's changeup, but that's more dictating your speed more than anything else.
It's basically like a slow fastball, right? It's same gripping, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was my favorite to throw in a video game for baseball because you trick your friend and then you laugh and then So those are the ones that I know.
I appreciate that. Look at you. I don't think you have a single strike yet. We're about 6 questions into this. I'm really proud of you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, so okay. Answer me this. This isn't one of my predestined questions, but it came up while you were talking about it. What's the difference between a slider and a curveball?
I think it's a matter of how you deliver it. Okay. And I think it's like a slider.
The concept of both is to do this, right?
Concept of both is to move. But I believe the slider does more kind of it goes horizontal, whereas like a curve is like an actual vertical move.
Oh,
that's what I think. It's
all about perception of the batter. Okay.
Now, if you are a fast pitch softball player, and this is really cool, is that the pitchers that play that can actually their curveballs go up, not down.
Okay.
Because of the way that you're pitching a softball, it's going from underneath and then up. So it's pretty wild. Like curveballs and sliders in that game still exist. It's just essentially inversed.
Interesting.
Which makes for some really interesting.
I didn't even know that.
Pitching.
So I mean, again, pardon my ignorance. I just assumed softball. We're just talking about straight fastballs all the time because I didn't think you had a lot of play with how you could deliver it underhand.
Oh no, yeah. You can do all kinds of things. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I learned what a pennant was in the last episode.
Ah, very good.
I didn't realize it's basically the triangular flag, right?
Yes.
That every ballpark, I guess, would fly for their team. I don't understand because I do understand that the pennant used to mean the championship game, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When did it change from pennant to World Series, and why did it change from pennant to World Series?
So there actually isn't a change. It's just the
Oh.
use of it being popularized or not. So here's the difference.
Oh,
The
okay.
American League pennant or the National League pennant is, in fact, if you win the American League or the National League, and then you play in the
Oh.
World Series.
So it's
Okay.
kind of like conference championships in football, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
correct.
still,
Now,
that's technically called the pennant for each of those
correct.
leagues.
Now,
okay.
the reason why it's less talked about, which is interesting, is the fact that the way the playoffs now work, which I think, frankly, I prefer the way the playoffs work now rather than way back in the day. So back in the day, it was just the top two in the American League that would play for the pennant, or the top two that would play for the National League pennant. That was the playoff, and then they would play the World Series. It was 2 rounds, and that was it. And then eventually they added division series and wild card, and then the sudden death game now, which is excruciating if your team is in it.
Okay.
Oh man, I had a heart attack a couple years ago.
There's a sudden death like playoff game, like a one and done situation where you're not playing.
165 game season or 62 game season, something like that, and then 1 game, and then to determine your entire fate is it. It leads to some really good games, but man,
yeah. Okay.
For those who are Nationals fans, you'll know what I'm talking about. Nationals Brewers 2019. You'll know what I mean.
So let me get this straight though. It's kind of like the wild card series, right? But it's like one step down from like a wild card for the playoffs is the sudden death game.
So yes, usually in baseball they do not have a wild. So football,
yeah,
wild card game is a game. The division game is a game.
Right.
Baseball, and I think it's because of its less like physically pounding nature that football has, is that you do series. So in the case of baseball, you usually have best of 3 or best of 5 or best of 7. And in the case of they didn't do it last year because the season was shortened because of COVID. But usually now they have a 1-game playoff where the last 2 teams of each side plays in order to get into the division series, which is a best of 5.
Okay.
So the stakes are so high because you spend 165 games, 162. Got to figure that out. To play in this one game playoff.
Yeah.
So it actually, what it did, it increased. I think what they were trying to do is increase viewership numbers, which I think it worked. But it also makes teams really want to compete hard during the season because you don't want to be in that 1-game playoff.
Right.
Because there's no room for mistakes. And there's a lot of really good teams that have, 90 some odd win seasons that end up in that 1-game playoff and they lose, which is really, it's heartaching. It's a heartbreak if you're stuck in there.
Right. So. I didn't know that there was actually that was actually the structure that was set up. How old is that? Is that I'm assuming it's pretty recent that they started doing
the 1-game rule?
Yeah.
That's fairly recent. I think that was 4 or 5 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
But it caused what I think was in some ways unfortunate because you have these perfectly great teams like the Oakland Athletics and a couple of years ago the Pittsburgh Pirates were even in the playoffs for the first time in a while. But because there's all these other great teams like St. Louis Cardinals or at least in the past it's Houston Astros, like they take the division, so you're stuck in this game. And the key in that game is you pitch the best pitcher you got. You put in your ace. Remember the Pirates in particular ended up in this problem where they went to the playoffs, they went to the wild card 2 seasons in a row. And both times the other team sent in, like, I don't know, it was one of their best pitchers that they possibly had. And it was a shutout because, that those pitchers are competitive and they know that I gotta shut everybody down.
Right.
I kind of felt bad for a team like the Pirates because it's like they did like a 94 game winning season that year and they were stuck in a wild card game. So anyway, I digress, but it's good for the game. it's really hard on the individual.
The individual fans of those teams. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Why is it called? And again, this is ignorance. I understand there's very good explanation for this. But why is it called the World Series? Any other American sport, football, basketball, even hockey, right? That does include teams from a different country. It's not okay. Again, I was gonna say there's ignorance here. So tell me why it's called the World Series when it seems like there's only American baseball teams.
You are correct, save for one team, Toronto Blue Jays.
Toronto. I figured it was Toronto. Okay.
There used to be the Montreal Expos, but they since have come to DC, became the Nationals. So
Okay.
it was that.
All right.
In terms of why it was called the World Series, I actually don't know specifically, but what I understand is that it was done back in the day when when the World Series was the sport event of the year and of the continent. So I think it was mainly done as just like a publicity, like, okay, we're gonna make it like a big deal. Now I think it actually makes even more sense because baseball, you know, you want to talk about diversity. I think baseball is actually one of the most diverse sports, period. At least in the American in Major League sport, where you got people not only from America of all different creeds and nationalities, etc.
Yeah.
But you have folks anywhere from Dominican Republic to Japan to South Korea to any number, Mexico, any number of these things, these places. So there's actually a pretty hefty amount of world attendance now within these teams. So now I think it makes more sense now. But I can have that be strike one where I don't actually know the exact story of why it's called the World Series.
Okay. All right.
Shame on me.
Yeah, we'll give you a strike for that. I feel like it's a good strike though. I feel like you swung pretty hard for it. I do feel it is a sport that is very worldly, right? It's almost universal, right? I feel like anywhere you go in the world, people are playing baseball. There's some type of baseball going on. It's not like anything else, really.
It is the most, in my opinion, it is the most democratic sport of all the professional fields because you can incorporate obviously people from around the world play, but it also incorporates something which is very different from most sports. Is body type is vastly diverse compared to like NBA players. All have to be tall. All have to be
right.
Usually lean and usually be able to jump. You know, the endurance aspect. Soccer players, straight endurance. You need to run for 15 miles without, whatever. You need to fall over dramatically and act like you're in pain. So you got to be good actor. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, guys. You have to be fast. You got to be quick, nimble, etc. Hockey, you got to be quick, nimble, but you also have to be, tough and be able to take the beatings and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas like baseball, have you ever seen pictures of Babe Ruth? The dude had a gut. Yeah. And like he drank a lot and he smoked a lot, and yet he has one of the greatest home run records of all time until Hank Aaron beat him. So like I'm fascinated at the level of differences that you can see in the game, but on a physical standpoint too, which is different than most sports.
All right. Speaking of Babe Ruth, that takes me into my next question, which my next question is all about nicknames. Can we just talk about nicknames for a second? Why are nicknames so prevalent in baseball? Like I don't think there's any other sport, right? Like we don't see like like pole vaulters that like have nicknames, right? So let's just go down the line. I have a list. Oh, okay. First answer. I want to hear your answer to why nicknames are so prevalent. We'll do that, and then I have a list of nicknames that I'm going to ask you if you know who that player is.
I'm going to give a simple explanation.
Okay.
Because baseball was built upon legends.
It's a good answer.
I'm going to leave it at that. We don't know who the actual founder of baseball was. There's speculation. We don't actually know. And it was formed and played right around the Civil War by both sides, which is interesting. And it became much more popularized. So like you even think about the legends that probably came from that and knowing that it it was formed as a sport during the reunification of the Union during that time. So like you want to talk about like age and kind of it's an ancient sport, at least in American history anyway. So I think that because it was built on that kind of history, I think that's why nicknames are a thing.
Okay.
That's my theory.
I like it. No, I feel like that's a better answer than I probably would have gotten from anybody else. All right, so I got a list of nicknames here. So I'm not going to give you a strike for each of these.
Okay.
This is just more for fun.
Is this for me guessing whose nickname is?
I'm gonna read you a nickname, and you need to tell me who the player is. Or do you want to do it the other way?
No. I want to guess the player.
All right, Charlie Hustle.
Is it Charlie something?
No, that's the whole point. That's why I chose it, because the guy's name isn't even Charlie. Yeah, it is Pete Rose. You got it.
Oh,
nice.
Cool.
His name's not even Charlie. Why is it called Charlie Hustle?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
All right. Stan the Man.
No Stan in the name?
No, this one does have Stan in the name. That's a hint.
Stanley McCormick.
Nope. You're close. Stan Musial. Musial.
Okay. Sorry, baseball fans.
All right. This one I think you'll get. Shoeless Joe.
Joe Jackson, Chicago White Sox, 1910s.
Sounds like he showed up to practice one day and everybody was like, "Hey, Joe."
Where are your shoes, buddy? I mean, he actually did show up for a game without playing his shoes because he didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't have him there at the time.
That's how we got the name Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Yep, and the name stuck. Yep.
And he played that game without his shoes?
I think so. So
wow.
so the stories go. And then he was also part of the White Sox gambling scandal in 1919.
Okay.
Or sorry, they threw the game, that we can get into that later. A lot of people think he was innocent. So
okay. This next one's pretty easy. Sultan of SWAT.
The Great Bambino, Baby Ruth.
The Babe.
Babe Ruth himself.
The real question here is, do you know Babe Ruth's real full name?
His mother does.
It's not the question.
She never told it to me personally. So,
George Herman Ruth was his name.
I get why you went with Babe Ruth.
Yeah, I'd go with Babe as well. Maybe. All right. This one I love. Oil Can.
Oh, no idea.
Yeah, I figured these would be hard. Oil Can was Dennis Boyd.
I mean, it sounds like either he was really slow or really fast, and he needed an oil can to grease his wheels, so to speak.
It's like he got up to bat, right, and he just like stood there and like froze.
Maybe he was maybe he had a lot of walks. Maybe that was his specialty.
Yeah, right. Like he just never swung. he didn't swing at any pitch, and everybody's calling from the dugout. They're like, "Oil can." Speaking of which, there is a nickname, the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think this person's from Kansas. Is it a Royals guy?
I don't know. I can look it up.
No idea. Okay. No, that's fine.
Can you use it in a sentence?
John Madden.
John Madden. Sorry, the mental image of John Madden playing baseball.
Drawing highlights as he's watching the game.
So he's gonna pitch it right here. He's gonna do it right there. And what he's gonna actually do here is he's gonna throw the ball, and the guy, he's gonna try and hit it. He's gonna try and run around the bases, and he's gonna try and score. But the other team doesn't want him to do that.
They need a John Madden in the sport. That's what they need.
No, Wizard of Oz was Ozzie Smith.
Yeah, for those of you guys who are listening and have since turned off this episode because of my terrible showing at baseball trivia, just because I don't know baseball trivia all as extensively as some doesn't mean I love this game any less. But continue.
The Splendid Splinter.
Ooh, Splendid Splinter. I feel like that's like Willie. No, Willie Mays was a Say Hey Kid.
From my understanding, this is a home run hitter in the 40s.
Oh, Lou Gehrig?
I think he played for Boston.
Gosh, I don't know my Boston. I don't know my Boston players during that time.
All right, Ted Williams.
Oh, Ted, of course. Okay.
All right, 2 more, and then we're done. All right, so Hammer and Hank. This one, I think, is relatively...
Hank Aaron.
Okay, there you go. Mr. October.
Oh, I was going to say Tom Brady, but that's not it. He's just Mr. Super Bowl.
Mr. February.
Yes, Mr. February. Mr. October.
They're coming out with a calendar.
Yeah. Is that Derek Jeter?
No. Right fielder. Played for Kansas City, Oakland A's, Baltimore Orioles, New York Yankees, and California Angels.
Oh, gosh.
Introduced into the Hall of Fame in 1993.
Alex Rodriguez.
No.
Rafael Palmeiro. Brady Anderson. Mike Messina.
Now it's just how many players can you name?
I just know Oriole players. That's what I'm going with now.
All right. It was Reggie Jackson, Mr. October.
Oh, Reggie, of course. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All
right. Now it's time for everybody's favorite time, the 7th inning stretch. I stretched last time, so I'll do it for you. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd.
Stretch it out here.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. Or it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. All right, just a few more questions for you. Hopefully everybody got a good stretch in there. This is just a real question for me. The in-your-face yelling with the umpire and the kicking of dirt onto the home plate.
Coach? Yeah.
Yeah. When did this become a thing and why?
Probably when rules were made.
It seems like something in any other sport. It's so iconic.
It's theater, man. It's perfect. It's perfect theater for sport. My favorite is that the coach is like goading the umpire, and you're just like, it's just a matter of time. They're gonna get kicked off.
What? I'm going to. This is the expectation for me to come out here and talk to you in your face, really close. All right.
Want a piece of me? You want to go? Coach?
We're just going to do this. We're going to do this for a few minutes, and then you're going to kick me out of the game. Okay. All right. How's your wife? She good? Okay.
Oh, she's
good.
great. She's great.
Great. How are the kids? They doing good?
Oh, wonderful. Good. They're going to pass class. I'm really excited. Yeah, I that was it was kind of fulfilling there, to be honest. I get why it's a thing.
Yeah, no, it actually was pretty therapeutic. I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
All right, here's another question. You're doing good. I don't think you've struck out yet. Why do you call a shortstop a shortstop? How did it get its name?
Why do they call it a shortstop?
Yeah.
Well, why would you want to call it a tall go? That's the real question, sir.
All right, next question.
Just gonna leave it at that. Don't know the answer.
Yeah. Why? Okay, mistakes are made in every type of game, right? Players drop passes in football. Guys miss shots, right? Mm-hmm. And basketball. Errors are statistics in baseball.
Yes.
Well, I get that there's statistics in other sports, right? Like people are counting how many passes are dropped and how many shots are missed. It seems like in baseball, though, like you make one mistake, and it is in the books. Like it is like something that people will judge you for. What's the theology or philosophy behind errors in baseball?
So this is my theory. I don't know exactly when errors were made to become a thing. However, I will say on a accountability of teamwork, I think it is something to be said about baseball where, like, heck, Bryce Harper can be Bryce Harper, but he's not LeBron. Like, you can't just score, 50 points by yourself and be like, oh, okay, I played for the Cavs. Oh, that's great. How'd you do? Well, I myself was able to come back and come back to beat the Warriors 3-1, and I came back. Well, how did the Cavs do after you left? Oh, they won 10 games the next season or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So I think there's a sense of like, okay, it's not just about you, it's about the team. So I there's a public record of if you've made a mistake. My theory is that because this game is so old, is that it was probably, I mean, no offense to our own modern age, it was probably invented in a time when I think like personal accountability to your community and your group was more seen as necessary in being a well-rounded human.
Interesting.
I'm probably completely wrong, but there is that theory of mine because I do think it's the only thing that I know of in a sport that, you're right, has a public declaration of your error.
Yeah. It's called error. It's not
Error.
Yeah. Man, I just can't imagine like a player walking into like the general manager's office and like, yeah, you had 89 RBIs this season and then 17 errors. Like, just having somebody like, can you imagine being like a basketball player and just like walking in and being like, you missed 82 shots this season? Like,
well, my favorite thing too to think about is the fact that, like, can you imagine, hey, I'd like a raise. Oh, well, let's talk about those errors and then we'll talk about a raise.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just general like jobs like you and I have, right? Like the mistakes that we make on a daily basis are being tracked and used against us.
You made 4 proofreading errors in the past month.
But
the
not only that,
no.
It's like public knowledge. So like, not only does your boss
it's like
know.
It's like a reply all message. Let it be known that Alex Barker said where instead of where in his email.
Yeah, he used YOUR when you should have used apostrophe RE. Yeah.
Idiot.
Oh man. Okay, so how do baseball fans, and not that you speak for everybody, but as a baseball fan, I'll ask you specifically.
Okay.
How do baseball fans feel about catching foul balls that could be caught by players?
Ooh, controversial topic. Okay, there are a lot of rules, and this is one thing I also love about baseball. There's a lot of like these weird like unspoken rules that you're not supposed to do. Like the latest thing that's controversial right now is the bat flip. Like that's like ever since Juan Bautista did it as a Toronto Blue Jay hitting a home run in the ALDS against the Rangers, which was a freaking awesome moment in baseball. If you want to watch that replay, it's really fun.
Okay.
And he does a bat flip and goes crazy. And then eventually, that's been like, oh, it's it's not classic baseball, it's this, that, whatever.
Interesting.
So I think the MLB I think has embraced it now at this point. But
it's like an etiquette thing though, right?
Yeah, it is an etiquette thing. So that's the thing that's interesting is that when baseball fans, so this thing they call it the pearl sometimes. And the pearl is like, this is one of the sacred things that if you are in the cathedral that is a baseball stadium and that you get, and I know a guy that caught not 1 but 2 foul balls in a single game. And I think it was at Nats Park or something, and he caught 2 foul balls.
Is this like an important game? Like
no, it was just a regular season game, but he ended up happening to catch 2 foul balls, and baseball is all about stats and history, and I think he was like the first person ever in the history of Nationals Park, which mind you was 12 years or something, to have done that. Now there's that situation, and then there's the classic situation of 2003, and I forget his name, but he was the Chicago Cubs fan who had the cassette player / radio thing, headphones in his ears, and his in a Chicago Cubs hat.
Steve Bartman.
Yep, Steve Bartman.
Yeah.
And a foul ball comes in from at the time, Florida Marlins. They hadn't renamed themselves yet. it's a high fly ball and it's going to the foul line and what happened? We don't know. And then they show that close up shot. Those of you who have seen this know what I'm talking about. Is
Poor
this
guy.
This guy reaches out, as every single human that has ever attended a baseball game would actually do, which is it was in foul territory. It is free game. Like it is actual free game. The problem is when the stakes are that high that you tend to forget that, hey, there might be actual shot. Yeah. I think there are players now like Mookie Betts is a good example. He plays for the Dodgers. I think he's right field. I think so.
Okay.
Who was pretty famous last year, in particular against the Braves in the championship series. And the Dodgers came back from the Atlanta Braves 3-1. They came back to win. And one of the big things that kept happening is that Mookie would actually be able to snag home runs right outside the foul line, or the home run territory. So if the fan were to reach out and grab it, it would be a home run. But I think now with people making those kind of catches, there is that kind of like, oh, okay. And I think the Steve Bartman case really freaked people out because, the poor guy can't go to Chicago games anymore.
Right.
Not
to mention, you watched the video, and the reason I know a little bit about this is because I did research it, because I did want to talk about it in next week's episode.
Yeah.
The guy next to him was reaching out just right next to him. I don't know that guy's name,
don't know. Don't know.
So it's good for me to know from a baseball fan. It is still controversial, and it's good to know that there are situations, especially like the situation the Steve Bartman situation, that have kind of made people. I know if I go to a game and I'm sitting right there on the wall, I'm thinking twice about reaching out to grab a ball. Like, I don't want to be on the news the next day. All right, now we're going to get into some trivia. So these are kind of the last few questions here. So this is where I'm really going to test you, okay? Really going to test you. With which team did Roger Clemens begin his major league career? I'll repeat the question. With which team did Roger Clemens begin his major league career?
East or west of Toronto?
East.
Oh, Boston Red Sox.
Yes. Boston Red Sox. Ding, 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 ding. With which team did Babe Ruth start his career?
Boston Red Sox.
Boston Red Sox. There you go. Who was the youngest player to hit 40-plus homers and 40-plus stolen bases in one season?
Boston Red Sox. Under 40?
40 plus. First, the youngest player to hit 40-plus homers and get 40-plus stolen bases in one season.
Stolen bases? Derek Jeter?
Same team, different player.
Alex Rodriguez.
There you go. Wow, I knew that. Cool. All right. How many home runs did Babe Ruth hit in his career?
753.
Oh, you're so close. Less.
Oh! It was 713.
Oh, you're
714.
one off.
714. That's right. Okay.
714.
Okay.
That's impressive. You're in the right hundreds area. That was pretty good. Denny McLain went 31-6 in 1968 with what team?
In what year?
Oh, I'm just gonna stretch. Denny McLain went 31-6 in 1968 with what team?
I'm gonna go with the Tigers.
What? How would you get that?
How did I
know? Wow. You're a true baseball fan. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
All right. That's the episode, guys. I got one more question though before we head out. And if you get this one wrong, I'm honestly going to be disappointed. Okay?
Okay.
The last question for the episode is, who's on first?
What's on second?
Yes.
And the other one's on third.
I don't know. Third base.
Now, did you know that there was a situation where who was on first and what was on second?
The actual player names? No, I didn't know
Last
that.
guy's name was Watt, W-A-T-T, and he was playing second base. And who was H-U, and he was at first.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, Abbott and Costello, 1953, they're a comedy group. There's a comedy bit. I grew up on oldies, old musicals and old comedy bits like Red Skelton and Abbott and Costello and stuff like that. So I'm a huge Abbott and Costello fan. The Who's first bit was hilarious. There's a movie called The Naughty 90s where the sketch of Who's on First is featured in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. So check out The Naughty 90s and check out the Who's on First sketch with Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. Alex, I don't think you struck out, honestly. I think you did a really good job.
Well, you got a really nice large strike zone. So
yeah. Yes, I do. But I that was putting you on the spot as a baseball fan. I understand that. I think you did really well. And today
we're going to be talking about our favorites, baseball favorites. So we are talking about stories. We're talking about teams. We're talking about all kinds of favorites. I don't know, Rich, if you want to start in particular with anything.
Yeah, I think we should start with our childhood memories. Favorite childhood memories of baseball. I'll start with a story of mine and kind of why I fell out of baseball. I fell out of love with baseball at a very young age because of an accident that happened. We've talked about it before on the show. It actually got edited out. It's on the cutting room floor of Table Talk. It just didn't pertain to the conversation that we had before, but it does pertain here, and I'll keep it in this one. When I was in first grade, I got hit in the head with a 7-iron golf club. That ended up giving me about 30-some stitches. It separated my skull. Very serious injury for a first grader. It happened right in the middle of baseball season, and I played outfield, and I had to wear a baseball helmet when I was in the outfield, and it was one of those situations. It was like we had just graduated from T-ball, right? We were at coach pitching type of level, right? That's a thing, right? Where the coach, it's like pitch, slow pitch, slow pitch baseball, peewee. And I kind of just fell out of love with it, just because I don't know, just because it was a weird time in my life where I had suffered a very serious injury, and I didn't like that period, I guess. And baseball somehow got associated with all of that when really it probably didn't have to. Anyway, that's unfortunately my childhood memory, but I do remember T-ball. I do remember loving the outfield a lot. I loved, as somebody who played a lot of very intense sports as a child, right? I was a big football player. I was a big basketball, lacrosse, and anytime I got to play outfield when I was a kid, and I remember loving the outfield so much. It's a different love of a sport than like football is or any other sport, because it's so, I don't know. I think, Alex, you said it kind of in the ramp up to getting us prepared for this episode. We haven't talked about it yet, but there is like this like religious, religious and spiritual are tricky words, but it is kind of a religious feeling that you get like when you're just kind of waiting, right? like you're out there in the middle of like this open field, kind of waiting for like the ball to come out to you. But other than that, like you're kind of just like, you're just in the moment, like you're just hanging out, like you're ready, you know what your role is, and it's just kind of like this patience that you have to have. It's a different type of sport, where it does require you to really kind of be focused, but not necessarily active like 100% of the time, It
is a sport of precision.
That's a good way to put it.
In the sense of sudden springness of activity. I often think it's the difference between a cat and a marathon runner, where a cat is athletic, but only in like little short bursts. Like you can't, like, you don't want to cross with a cat, but all of a sudden it's just like all of a sudden, and then they grab whatever it is, and you're kind of, whoa, how'd you do that? And baseball is kind of like that, where you don't really do much per se, but you really
Yeah.
have to be flexible in particular because you have no idea when you're going to have to contort your body in a particular direction to catch this or hit that or move out of the way or, whatever it is.
I did want to share this.
Oh, look at you, Rich.
There I am. That's me. That's my face. I'm assuming 10, 9, 8, 9, 10-year-old face. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Dude, I love your stance, man. Is this in...
is it good?
Yeah. Is this your hometown?
This is Westfield, Indiana. What about you, Alex? What type of memories do you have?
Yeah, I was able to scrounge this up. So my dad was actually my head coach growing up. So he was my head coach from coach pitch on to there we go. From coach pitch on to majors in Little League. So this is the Dodger days.
Exactly like you.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly
isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? The
thing is, I've seen your dad now, right? He's got his own look, right?
Yeah, he does.
Right now.
He does.
He doesn't look like you. This guy looks This basically looks like you're a time traveler.
I know.
Right?
Well, I hate to say, but yeah, exactly. But that would have been 1999, based on the hat. I remember, and that was probably my favorite year for baseball. That was Major League. 99 was a great year in general. Played first base. I, for some reason, wore a watch when playing baseball, which I think is funny. And that would have been
what time it is.
Yeah, well, it's game time.
It's game time.
So that probably, based on that photo, I think that was in Pine Ridge Field, which is in Fairfax County. I believe it's in Falls Church area or Annandale. I'm unsure at what point that switches, but regardless, that's me, and that's Coach Barker, which is my dad. And I think he would have been in his
spitting image.
Yeah, goodness. I think he would have been in his 40s early 40s at that point. So,
wow,
yeah, kind of crazy.
All right, explain to me some of these other photos here.
So that would have been the Dodger dugout of 1999, I think. I can tell you first names. Mike, who's crazy dude there on the left. Yeah, he was catcher. He also had teardrop eye pupils, which was very interesting. Only guy I ever knew. It was like cat eyes. It was interesting. I don't know if you can see that well. He's a good kid. Mike, I don't know if you're around, man, but this is I wonder where all these guys went. Steve, there's Steve right there. He was a great pitcher. This was 2000 because the hat changed. That's me behind Mike's fist, and then to the right of me, that was a Farrell brother. Oh, there's Nato. That Nathan Toner right there. He had the best nickname, Nato. And then that would have been a Farrell brother. I can't remember if it's Adam. It might be Adam.
Which one?
The one who's sitting on the bench.
Right here?
No. That guy. And then to his right, I forget his first name, but last name I think is Miller. And then finally, to the direct right of him, who's behind him, I don't remember. No, I don't know. Left of him, right of him, don't know. And then Josh Del Pino right there to the right. He was the main man. He was second baseman while I was first, and he was great. We had a lot of fun playing ball together. But I think he and I ended up going to the same high school. Now that I think about it, he and I were classmates
Nice.
down the line. But yeah.
And who's this?
No idea. Random, probably a sibling of one of us. It's at that point, I guess. And that's my dad sleeping because he's tired.
This is your dad. I thought this was you. Okay. This
okay.
makes sense. Okay. That's your dad.
After a long day at on the field, probably a Saturday.
After yelling in the umpire's face.
Right,
probably.
right.
Yeah.
Because my dad was totally like that. Yeah. That would have been single A ball. The Royals, probably the best team I ever played on. I think we went 10-2 that year.
That's you, right?
That's me.
All right.
Lucky number 13.
Number 13. And I love how everybody's goofing off in this photo, except for him. It's like he missed the memo. Like
Missed the memo. Yep.
He missed the memo that this was supposed to be the funny. In case all the kids being crazy in front of you didn't give you enough warning.
Yep.
It's just like straight face. Like even your dad is like.
Even my dad's getting in on it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he's completely oblivious. So Andy,
Nice.
my wife wanted to get in on this. So this is my wife Andy. With another, she grew up in South Bend. This is her brother Josh.
I thought you were going to say, and that's me. I was like, wow, you were.
Yeah, right. We go way back. This is them at I believe this is a Silverhawks game. South Bend Silverhawks, which I think are now the South Bend Cubs because they feed me for the Cubs.
Okay.
But yeah, Josh Corzan, shout out to you, bud.
Yeah.
And then my wife Andy.
That's fun.
Somebody drinking a nice beer right behind them.
Always. Got to go with that.
And there's my wife Andy now, grown up, and that's us at a actual Silverhawks game in South Bend.
Nice.
That was a minor league game. That's one of the first games I had been to since being a child. You can see how excited I am to be there. My employer at the time had bought us tickets. We sat at the Silverhawks had a patio seating where you could like sit at like a picnic table, like right on the third. Well, that's the third baseline right there. So we're a little bit in the outfield, but still a great place to sit and just like have a hot dog and just hang out.
That's fun.
Yeah. So that's us. My wife has a lot of stories she wanted me to share for this episode. She couldn't be here with us, unfortunately. But she did do the Boston Marathon when she was, I think, in college. And after she had run the Boston Marathon, she went to Fenway Park to go see a baseball game. So this is her photos from Fenway. So there she is. Obviously, you can't see her because she's taking the photo, but that's Fenway. Sitting in the outfield. Yep. Entrance to Fenway. Are there any more that we missed? Hold on. Let's see. I thought you had at least another one. Oh, yeah, that one.
That was well, okay, so this is one of my favorite ones. I just noticed it literally today. So that's me. Yeah, that would have been 2000 because we got the classic LA home thing jersey. And now this was at a Prince William Cannons game, which was the minor league team in my area. They since then became the Potomac Nationals and now have recently moved. And they're now this year, their official inaugural season, it was supposed to be last season. They will be the Fredericksburg Nationals and they will be the Fred Nats. Very wisely, instead of the P Nats of Potomac Nationals, they did not become the F Nats because that would have been a little problematic there. But my favorite thing about this whole photo, we're all together, right? We got our cool little banner thing. Now, if you look on the left side, the last names, what do you see?
The left side.
Let's scroll down. Now you see the names, and those are the coaches' names. Read them out loud, bottom to top, please.
Wait, where? Here?
No. Yeah, in the red. No. Up to the left side. Yep. Bottom up, please.
Rutherford,
yeah.
Rana. I see it now. And Baker.
Baker. Isn't that great? Look at that. Everyone's spelled right, except for my dad's last name. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are named Barker, if you know anyone named Barker, please, for the life of you, double check the fact that you're actually spelling it correctly, because I can't tell you how many times Coach Barker and son Barker.
This is how you spell it.
That is how you spell it. Barker. Like even my brother has an Instagram handle, Barker Not Baker, just specifically because we've been called Baker. We've been called Parker. I've even been called Marker this past year, which was a new one. I'd never been called Marker before. So I don't know. It's one of the most, I think anyway, it's one of the most least interesting white guy names out there. It's very English. Barker. Like it's not complicated. Get your friends' names right, please, and your coworkers. Just ask them and write it down. Just phonetically spell it.
It's very simple. Just call people by the right name. Just
Exactly.
do that for us, please. A few more childhood memories. Besides playing with the batter's helmet in the outfield, Indianapolis Indians games. My parents took us to a lot of Indianapolis. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but our fair share of Indianapolis Indians games. Those were always good memories growing up, as any ballpark really is. Any minor league ballpark really is. The other thing I wanted to mention, the feel. There's something, and again, this is kind of like being in the outfield, right? There's something about the sport that is so unique. I don't remember any other sport where there's something that makes me feel the way I feel when you hit a ball with a bat.
Yeah.
The crack of it hits all the senses, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds good. It feels good. Your hands tingle, right? Your hands like shake. You can feel it for like 5 minutes after you've hit a ball with a baseball bat. I remember feeling that as a kid and thinking, that's a really cool feeling. I like that a lot.
I've always thought that sports that in tune you with the outdoor environment too is very different than like hockey and basketball. Very great. But like when you actually play, it's contained, right? It's within a certain thing.
Yeah.
I mean, football is sort of similar to this, especially if it's like outdoor like style somewhere in Cleveland or Green Bay or wherever it would be.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that there is a sense where, especially with baseball, when you're out in the field, you have no padding on. The only thing you have is a hat and a glove. So there is that sense of where you are kind of exposed to the world and the smells and the feel and the view. It's very interesting.
Any other favorite memories that you had growing up?
I'll put it this way. My dad, when he was coach, he went all out. And he made, with my mom's help with photos, he made newsletters for the team. So we had Royals Report and Single A. We had the Devil Rays replays. That's what that was. The Dodger Dugout, which was classic, and then I think those were the big three. But Dodger Dugout was great. And he would even do stats. Like he would, because they keep track of stats in Little League. So, what to, turn in and how it went.
Stats are part of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. But he would actually like record the stats and as part of newsletters have like, all right, Alex Barker has, this many strikeouts or this many, walks or hits or whatever it is. So kids would actually keep track of it. It was really fun.
That is cool.
So I think that, and then finally, as any 9-year-old or 10-year-old thinks, the snacks were definitely some of my favorite things.
Yeah. You gotta have the Capri Sun at the end of every game.
Oh yeah.
The cheese sticks.
Oh yeah. Keep it coming. Yeah, exactly. So
I forgot about that. That's such a great point. I forgot that there was that was one of the things you looked forward to as a kid, right? Yep. Like let's just get this game over with because I know we have Lunchables.
Get to the snacks. Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you have a favorite player growing up, or do you have a favorite player now?
I mean, growing up as a kid, it was definitely Cal Ripken Jr. of the Orioles. His whole Iron Man streak, I think, was particularly impressive. Impressive in that its record was not based on some like grandiose achievement. It was just showing up to work every day, which is a testament, I think, to I think that's integrity lived out in baseball is just showing up and being like, okay, I'm going to play.
So wait, what was the record again? So it was
the record he broke was Lou Gehrig's record, which it's like 2,000 something games played in a row. So that means you don't take a day off. Each season is about 162 games. So if you think about how long that would actually take for you to do it every day for, baseball seasons are almost 6 months long. So that, it's a lot of wear and tear. So I remember just kind of the earth shaking deepness that hit the Baltimore and DC area because the Nationals weren't there yet. Baltimore was the local team and everyone really had like a high respect for him. I mean, they still do. He definitely loves the game and he's a bit of a a generational baseball player. Actually, his father was coach for the Orioles for a time, and his brother was also a player at the same time as he was. Billy Ripken, I think is his name. So he's pretty big in the kind of the eastern seaboard area, especially Maryland, about kind of the next generation of baseball and teaching and that kind of thing. So. So he was my favorite growing up. I think my all-time still is Jackie Robinson, just for historical and the significance that he brought to the world.
And we had, if you haven't checked out the superheroes episode, you should check out the superheroes episode that Alex and I had. We talk about Jackie Robinson.
Yes, we do.
He comes. It might be hard to understand why he came up in a superhero conversation, but you have to watch that episode to find out.
It makes sense in context. My current fave would probably be a toss-up between, I'm biased, I'm a Nationals fan, probably between Max Scherzer, who's one of the ace pitchers we have, and then Juan Soto, who is a young gun, who is an amazing ball player, right field, left field, I think. But he is he's an amazing hitter and a really fun personality. So I think both of them are probably my favorite right now, I would say.
Okay, good. With Cal Ripken, I did have a question. So it's pretty common, though, for rosters to change, right? Pretty regularly.
Yes.
It's not like a lot of other sports where the starters are kind of the starters, right? It kind of depends on the season, right? Who needs to rest, who needs to be in at a certain time. Like you said it before in a previous episode, where it is more of a team sport in that aspect, where you have to have a deep bench, because you could be starting a whole different lineup almost every single game, right?
Right. Exactly.
Or different series or different parts of the season, right? So is it common for somebody is Cal Ripken like a huge exception to somebody that played so many games in a row? Or is it specifically his position that allowed him to do that?
He definitely was. He was actually a tall shortstop for a time. Like, he was incredibly tall for his type for a time, and then eventually I think at the tail end of his career, he primarily played third base, I think. As far as I understand it, you have to play a certain amount of innings in a game in order for it to count. I don't know if it means that he was there in all 9 per game, or if there was a certain point where he was able to, okay, I'm going to, sit out 2 innings, or, whatever it is.
Okay.
Because that sometimes can happen. I don't know the exact rule about that. But I just know that he had stamina, and I think his body in particular was built to handle that well. And I think he just, I remember reading one of his his autobiographies about it, and it was just mainly like he loved the game. He just loved showing up every day. He loved playing. I think it helped a lot that his brother and his dad were also playing in the same team. He grew up in Maryland, so he loved the Orioles. That was the only team he was ever interested in playing for, regardless of their success or lack thereof. And he really was a no nonsense kind of player. He was not unpleasant to be around, but it was his work. This was
business first, pleasure later.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's cool. Yeah. It almost dropped my baseball. Goodness.
Oh no.
Goodness. Fumble, right? Baseball fumble. That's a thing.
Error.
Right?
Error.
Yeah. Oh, one of many for this month. My favorite player doesn't hold as much weight, and I don't have a lot of just because I'm not as big of a fan as Alex is. I do remember, though, growing up being really, I followed Mark McGuire around.
There you go.
And just because he was the big hitter when I was growing up.
It's a big deal.
1990s. It was him and Sammy Sosa that were kind of going back and forth, I remember. But I remember when I heard the name Mark McGuire, I paid attention.
Now here's a question for you then. Because you grew up in Indiana, were more people Chicago Cubs fans or more people St. Louis Cardinals fans? Because Indiana does not have an official MLB team.
Right. There's a lot of both. I'd say the Cubs were the dominant fan base. but St. Louis Cardinals were big as well. And I of the two, I've actually been to the Cardinals stadium and been to a game there. So I would say the crowd I was around growing up and around in high school and early college, St. Louis Cardinals was kind of where our heads were at. So
it's a cool rivalry.
Mark McGuire, yeah,
cool rivalry, very old and very historic in that way. That's cool.
Rivalry between the Cardinals and the Cubs because of the proximity, or
probably a little bit of both, and they've just been around for so long.
Okay,
I mean, both of them have been around. I don't know. I think like early 1900s. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, all right. And Mark McGuire played for. He was a first baseman, played for the Oakland A's and St. Louis Cardinals. But what the Mark McGuire I remember was playing for the Cardinals.
Yep. And Sosa was for the Cubs, I think.
Cubs, yeah. Yep. So, yeah, I guess I didn't realize that was if that was a huge rivalry, then that made it 10 times bigger. Was that they were kind of going back and forth? It was almost like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady.
Yep.
You know, going back and forth, one hit after the other. One was leading the home runs, and yeah. So he was a home run master. He holds the record for at bats per home run ratio, which is 10.6.
Wow.
So that means roughly every 10 or 11 at bats, he would hit a home run. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. And he was drop the ball again. All right. He was. I'm just gonna leave it over there. It's too distracting for me. He was the former record holder for home runs in a season, 70 in 1998, and home run hits by a rookie, which was 49 in 1987. So,
yep.
A little bit of controversy, I understand, with steroid use, and
just a smidge of a controversy, just a teensy weensy bit.
But all of that aside, he was when I think of individual players that I actually paid attention to growing up, or anything like that, Mark McGuire is a name that came up.
He stood out.
So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, did you have? Is there a specific play that is like your favorite play, like something that you think of as like either nostalgic, like I remember when that happened type of thing, or?
I got a couple, because there's different experiences for each one. So my favorite thing that I've personally ever participated in is a double play. There is nothing like a double play, like defensively. It is so much fun. And and shout out to Josh Delpino and Joe Crandall. That was his name, who played shortstop in the old Dodger days. And I just remember, I remember distinctly Josh just scooping it up and him tossing it to Joe, and Joe would always do the like Michael Jordan tongue thing, and do the throw. And to me, I was like, this guy's so athletic, it's amazing. But I can't imagine what it would look like as a parent, zoom out, and Joe's probably like 3 inches tall or something. We're all tiny.
Right.
But we got those double plays. Boy, those are fun.
Nice.
But yeah, that was personally my favorite. My favorite ones in baseball, hitting wise, is the cycle where you hit single, double, triple, home run all in one game. That is very hard. It's hard enough to go 4 for 4 in a game at all. But to be able to hit all 4 of those type of hits in a single game is really difficult.
So this is like a baseball hat trick almost.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's very difficult. Probably though the most difficult play, and it's not even a play, it's an achievement in a given game, is my personal favorite, is a no-hitter. Where a pitcher does not allow a single hit. One of my favorites I ever remember hearing about, my parents witnessed this in Nats Park, which was really cool. Jordan Zimmerman got a no-hitter against the Marlins, Miami Marlins. And the last play in the bottom of the ninth, I forget who was hitting for the Marlins. He hits a shot to left field that looks like it's going to be a hit, and you just see Jordan Zimmerman. He throws it, and you hear and you just see his shoulders sag because he thinks that it's going to be done, and his whole thing's going to be ruined. And the left fielder is like going back and he does almost like a football catch where you can tell he's kind of guessing where the ball's going to land, where his glove is, and he makes a leaping catch, dives, catches it. Game is over. Jordan Zimmerman gets his no-hitter. It was so cool.
Nice.
And I looked this up. Only 305 no-hitters have been achieved since 1869.
Wow.
You think about how many games are played, how many teams are playing those games, and there's only 305 no-hitters ever thrown.
Wow.
It's a really rare occurrence in baseball. So anyway, I think that's my favorite.
Wow.
How about you? What do you got?
Well, that's an interesting take on the question too, because I was thinking like specific like plays, like so and so's home run in the bottom of the ninth. Okay. I was thinking that line, and you're actually thinking like specific like plays that happen,
in baseball.
In baseball. So that's tell me
what you were going to say.
Take.
Well, tell me what you were going to go.
We talked about it last episode. The play that stands out to me, just because I'm more of a passive fan of baseball, because so obviously so-and-so's home run in the bottom of the ninth is not something that I would really be in tune with as a more passive fan. The thing that I remember the most is this we've already talked about, the Steve Bartman incident.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Wrigley Field, Chicago, between Cubs and Marlins. 8th inning.
Like a sportscaster. Come on.
October 14, 2003, Wrigley Field, Chicago, between Cubs and Marlins. 8th inning, Game 6 of the National League Championship, with Chicago leading 3-0. Winning the series 3-2. Marlins batter Luis Castillo
probably.
hit a fly ball into foul territory in left field. Cubs outfielder Moises, I'm sorry, I don't know these names. Moises Alou pursued the ball and leapt near the fence in an attempt to make the catch. Along with the other spectators seated against the wall, Cubs fan Steve Bartman reached for the ball, but he deflected it, disrupting Alou's potential catch. If Alou had caught the ball, it would have been the second out in the inning, and the Cubs would have been just 4 outs away from winning their first National League pennant since 1945. The Cubs ultimately allowed 8 runs in the inning and lost the game 8-3. When they were eliminated in Game 7 the next day, the incident was seen as the first domino to fall in affecting the series outcome.
And of course, this feeds into the whole Billy Goat, curse of the Billy Goat, the superstitions of baseball, right? Yeah. Not to mention the involvement of the fans, and also just how intense, the whole situation was for that. It's something that just struck me.
Can I tell you a funny story about superstitions in baseball? Because this is one of my favorites.
Well, that's one of the questions. What's one of your favorite superstitions? And I added that. I don't think it was on your list, but
okay,
yeah,
no, it's fine. So I got one. So, and this is a personally felt superstition from my team, the Nationals, who were based in D.C., Washington. And the Washington Nationals have been here since 2005, and historically, they and the Seattle Mariners were the only 2 teams left in the MLB so far that have never been to a World Series. The Mariners are still the only team now that haven't actually been to the World Series. Feel bad for them, but they'll get there.
Team?
They're the only team now. There's plenty of other teams that have been but never won. But they're the only team that's just never been at all. So the Nationals had a really, really good squad, right? And in particular in the 2010s, they dominated as one of the NL East teams that was highly competitive against the Braves, against the Phillies, et cetera, the Mets. And there were some pretty high expectations that, hey, we're going to go to the World Series at some point, right? So Bryce Harper is one of those players, and he is the kind of the stellar, the star of the show, the one that's supposed to help raise up the caliber of what it means to be a national. And he's coming in, he came in from the minor leagues, and he's hitting really well, and he hits these crazy homers, and he's really emotional and gets into it and has some classic fights that are great to watch on YouTube and kind of still kind of cringeworthy. And then he decides, okay, my contract's done. I'm going to pack it and head into Philly. So I'm going to sign a $335 million, something like that. $315 million over 13 years, something like that. Yeah. And so he signs, he goes to Philadelphia, and he's in spring training. And dude, this is spring of 2019, right? He's dressed to the nines in Philly gear, and he's got his first media press conference, and he stands or he sits and he's looking at the conference and very serious, and he says, yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Very excited to hear, to be able to be here today for spring training for the first day. As you know, we want to bring a title back to DC, and I'm going to do this and this and this. And people are like, wait, what? Did he just say DC? Yeah, I think he just said DC. He didn't say Philly. Yeah, he said DC. So
oh no,
that is spring of 2019. The Nationals, after going 19-31 in May of that year, all of a sudden go on this like crazy hot streak, and they come back and they're essentially the best team in baseball if it weren't for the record. They get to the wild card, they come back to win, and then they win the World Series in 2019. So everyone in DC thanks Bryce Harper for helping bring a title to DC for leaving. So that's the superstition, is that it just took him to leave, and then the Nationals were going to win.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of the Babe Ruth effect for the Red Sox, I guess. But yeah. And we wish him well. I hope he has success in Philly, but that was timely. And anyway, very
forgetting which team he played for momentarily.
Right. I mean, it was a great flub. I mean, and he played it off as though he didn't say it. I don't even think he realized he said it until later, but it was pretty classic.
I came across a superstition that I was a fan of.
Okay. There's a lot of great superstitions.
I mean, there's a lot of superstitions, right, in baseball. There's a whole bunch. I mean, players won't like. I think there's a superstition where you can't step on the foul line while you're coming onto the field.
Yep.
Obviously, there's other superstitions, individual superstitions, players not washing their clothes after a win or something like that. There's a whole bunch of that stuff. My favorite one that came up was not talking about a no-hitter or a perfect game while it's in progress.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a superstition that the players have. It's a superstition that the fans have, right? And it's a superstition that the announcers are in on, right? Nobody will talk about it. It's like everybody, if you're in the stands, if you're new to baseball and you find yourself at a game where the no-hitter is being pitched and you don't understand that you can't talk about it, you're gonna get booted out of the stadium.
You can't talk about it. And there's it's funny, you see footage of pitchers and literally the players will not even sit near them. They won't even. Yeah, there's a certain clearance that they give to these players to let them kind of do their thing. It's a really weird superstition, but I think that it's kind of based in some truth where it's look, you don't want to break their concentration. Baseball is hard enough to concentrate on.
Right.
So it's that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I liked it just because it wasn't just so and so's not going to change his socks after he won a game. It was it's something that everybody's in on,
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Favorite. I want to get to this. Favorite stadium. What's your favorite stadium?
I gotta say Fenway.
Okay.
I've never been. I understand you got to be there. I get that. I chose it because of the features at Fenway. I don't know a lot of stadiums or just general sports arenas that have so many features that have their own identities, their own names. I mean, the Green Monster by itself is something, right? The Green Monster, it's got the manually updated scoreboard, which I think is cool. So there's still to this day people inside of that wall. If you don't know what the Green Monster is, it's a huge wall. Yeah, it's a huge wall in Fenway, and we'll have a picture, I'm sure, it's a huge, just big green wooden wall that is so unique to baseball because you don't usually have a big, huge wall, right? That the ball can basically bounce off of, and you don't really know which way it's going. Kind of adds an element to the outfield, but also it's if my understanding is correct, it's a short field, right? It's a small baseball field, so a lot of home runs hit in that baseball field, especially for right-handed hitters. So,
per usual,
yeah. And then the inside of that wall, I guess, is covered with signatures from Red Sox players. So that's pretty cool. The triangle is a region of the center field where the walls form a triangle. So I guess it's not necessarily true center field, as it would be for most ballparks. But it's, I guess, considered the center field, and it's like an area where all the walls come in and kind of create this little section of the outfield.
Space. Interesting.
Williamsburg is the name of the bullpen. It was built in 1940 to enable left-handed batters to hit more home runs. It's named after Ted Williams, who we talked about last episode, who's a left-handed batter. So they basically made it so that Ted Williams could hit more home runs. Yeah, because it made it. They created the bullpen. It just stood out like 23 some feet or so, or whatever, from the actual wall. So, and the lone red seat marks the longest home run hit at Fenway Park. It was hit by Ted Williams on June 9th, 1946. The official measurement was 502 feet.
Holy cow!
Yeah. The ball, there's a funny story with this. The ball landed on Joseph A. Boucher, penetrating his large straw hat and hitting him in the head. A confounded Boucher was later quoted as saying, "How far away must one sit to be safe in this ballpark? I didn't even get the ball. They say it bounced a dozen rows higher, but after it hit my head, I was no longer interested. I couldn't see the ball. Nobody could. The sun was right in our eyes. All we could do was duck. I'm glad I didn't stand up."
That's
so anyway,
such a good quote.
Yeah.
I think my favorite stadium, well, I'm biased in that the Nationals Park is my favorite, but it's because I've been there the most by far, and I think the design is really nice. It's right next to the Anacostia River. You can hop on the metro in DC to get there to the Navy Yard exit. It used to have a great view of the Capitol building. However, because of the development with not only the stadium but around the surrounding area around the stadium with more residential living, etc., is that the view for the most part is gone, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because I guess it's good for the area, but at the same time it's kind of sad. And I think my other favorite would be Camden Yards at the Oriole Parks at Camden Yards. That one was built in the early 90s. And
where's this at? Sorry.
This is Baltimore. This is Orioles.
Baltimore. Okay.
Yeah. And it was actually seen as a trend starter of in the 50s, 60s, the new stadiums would be like further out in the burbs, because that's where the quote unquote the fan base was. But then the Orioles in the 90s said, no, we're going to build it downtown. So they built it in downtown Baltimore. And that kind of caused that resurgence of old school style, like Ebbets Field Dodgers in Brooklyn, where it's just like in the heart of these neighborhoods. So that's why you get a lot of these new stadiums are actually like in the heart of these downtown places. So that's pretty cool. So
yeah. I did have a question about who your favorite team was. I guess we can answer that by just looking at your hat and your jersey.
Washington Nationals, formerly known as the Montreal Expos, founded in 2005, and winners of the World Series of 2019. Just saying.
Shout out. Yeah. Did you want to talk minor league teams? Did you have a minor league team that you follow?
I mean, I've been following the Bulls of Durham and the Carolina Mudcats, which is one of my favorite minor league names. It's a nickname for a catfish, and they play in Zebulon, North Carolina, which is east of Raleigh by about 25 minutes, and Durham Bulls play in Durham, North Carolina, which is north of where I live, about a half hour northwest. So I'm getting into them.
West Michigan Whitecaps for me, even though I haven't been to a game because #COVID.
Yep.
So in the South Bend Silverhawks.
Yep. I gotta add one minor league team. Brooklyn Cyclones had to be one of my favorites. I went to several games down there in Coney Island.
Did you?
Yeah.
Man, I should have gone with you. That's one of my regrets, is while we were out there, I didn't actually go to any sporting events. I wanted to go to a Yankees game. I wanted to go to a Mets game. Man,
the Mets and the Nets.
Yeah, right.
Someone wasn't thinking. Yeah. I want to go to a Mets game. A Nets game? No, a Mets game. Oh, a Nets game. No, a Mets game.
No,
There we
Mets.
Mets.
Yes.
Explain this to me, New York. That's what I want to know.
Favorite mascot or mascot / team name. I guess it's two different things.
I got to go with the Mudcats. They're so ridiculous that I'm like,
okay.
but it's like they named themselves after a catfish. Bottom dweller. Very competitive.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
You?
I had a job where I was working in Delaware. We were living in New Jersey. My wife was working in New York. So that was a crazy time in our life before you and I met. But while I was working in Delaware, my company did give us tickets to a Phillies game.
Just game.
And I went out there and I got to experience firsthand the Philly Fanatic mascot.
Oh yeah. What a weird mascot.
Large furry green bipedal, whatever, two-legged, flightless bird with an extendable tongue. According to his official biography, the Fanatic is originally from the Galapagos Islands, and is the he is the Phillies' biggest fan. He replaced Philadelphia Phil and Philadelphia Phyllis as the mascots. In 1978. So Philadelphia Phil and Philadelphia Phyllis were siblings dressed in 18th century garb.
Ooh, yeah. Need to change.
Yeah.
What doth thee strike? Striketh out. Ye striketh out, sir. I am ashamed. Sign the declaration, or ye shall die. Give me hits, or give me death. Death it shall be. My name is Philly. My name is Phyllis. There's a lot of Phils there. Philadelphia. Yeah, I they should have had Groundhog Phil be their mascot. just release all the groundhogs in the seventh inning. Not the seventh inning stretch. It's the seventh inning scream. Everyone just running for their lives. Anyway, you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Speaking of seventh inning stretch, we should probably take our seventh inning stretch for this episode. Do you think?
My turn.
Okay. All
right. Well done. Work out those shoulders.
Thank you. Yeah, getting tight. All right. Favorite position?
Sitting down.
That could have gone a lot of different ways, so I appreciate you too.
We're family friendly here, folks. I would say the favorite position for me would be first base, and then it's killing me. Favorite baseball player position?
Yeah. Yes.
Would either be first base or center field.
First base or center field.
Yes. You? Go ahead.
I chose catcher because
Nice.
This guy's squatting the whole game. It's physically impressive to me that he's just like, he must want to come home at the end of the day and just want to stand up. He's just constantly bending his knees. It just seems so. It just seems so interesting to me.
Do you think when they come home, do they eat dinner standing up?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. He's just got to be so tired of having his legs bent.
Goes to a restaurant. No. Standing room only. Oh, that's great. That's what I want.
Yeah. Standing room only. I'll just stand at the bar and eat my meal there. It's physically. It's all joking aside. It's physically impressive to watch them just squat the entire game, but also, they have the strongest arm, right? Out of usually, right? Because they have to be able to throw it all over the field
while sitting down.
Yeah, right. They're touching the ball. They're like the quarterback, right? They're touching the ball all the time. They're in charge of a lot of the plays, from what I understand.
Yep.
Not to mention the signals and the mental capacity that you have to have at the position. Like, you're involved in so many ways at that position. So it seems like such a great position to me. When you go out to watch baseball, where do you like to sit?
Nosebleeds.
Yeah. I didn't ask where you have to sit. I asked where do you like to sit.
My wallet commands me. You cannot afford this. You must go to nosebleed.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know why my wallet talks like that, but I would say left field is my favorite usually, but I think it's because I like seeing the lefties actually being able to bat, seeing their face.
Okay.
Plus, it's exciting if you're on the left field line when you get to see the third base people round home. Like, there can be kind of that thrill of come on, you're almost there. That side.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I've also enjoyed right field. The seats beyond right field, which aren't many, at least in Nats Park. But it is fun to be able to be on the outfield side. It's a different vantage point, which is cool. So
yeah, are we talking like outfield, or like third base line, or sorry,
not third base line, like outfield, like beyond where right field, where right fielder would be.
Okay,
and just in like the home run, kind of section.
And I feel like this question depends on where you're what stadium are you in, where are you watching baseball, basically, because depending on the stadium, I feel like I'd want to sit in different places, but
which is what I love about baseball more than any other sport is that the dimensions of baseball fields are not standardized.
Right.
Like there's a certain distance I forget what the minimum is, but like there's all these, like what you were talking about Fenway. There's all these different dimensions that function where like a football stadium doesn't have that. Like, you're not going to all of a sudden, play for the Saints and all of a sudden, well, there's a big old, I don't know, there's a hole in the ground or a rock or something you have to avoid. That would make it interesting.
Watch out for the sinkhole on the 15-yard line.
Right. Watch out for that. That would probably be more Miami or a Florida-based situation. But yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about stadiums is the fact that they are so different in baseball.
I'm weighing your answers a lot heavier than my own. Third baseline is fine enough for me if I can afford the seat. Most of the time, I'm watching baseball from the cheap seats. So
same here.
Or through a hole in the fence.
Unless you're in a minor league game, which is another reason why I love minor league, is that everyone has basically a front row seat. And by the third inning, if no one's there in front of you, you just move right on up.
Move right on down. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
And I know you wanted to talk about your physical favorite place on the baseball field.
Oh, dude. Okay, so my favorite. Okay, so there's like two spots. As a kid, I remember absolutely loving, like what you were saying about outfield. It's interesting because there is that kind of like, because there's no one behind you usually. There's no fans. So it is kind of rather quiet. And as a little kid, you're just kind of looking around and, oh, look, there's a blade of grass or whatever. So there was that kind of like calmness that I remember enjoying every now and again. But I loved the dugout, man. Oh, I love the dugout so much. It was almost more fun to be in the dugout than to play sometimes. Because, there's always some joke being giggled at or sunflower seeds or big league chew, passed around, anything like that. It was good. It was a good time. So I think those are my favorite spots.
It's such an interesting dynamic too. It's like, it's so tucked away. For as fan friendly as baseball is, the dugout really is kind of like
prison.
We're hiding from you, Right. Like, this is our like little fortress that we have. It's interesting. But I think I like it. If I was a player, I would love that protection, that kind of like mental zone of just like having a roof over your head and having to like climb out of this bunker really to like get onto the field, because it feels like this kind of like team safe haven almost type of
it's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
that.
Plays into the psychology of the sport as a whole, I feel like. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a cool. I wouldn't have thought of the dugout. I listed my favorite place as the outfield.
Very good.
I like the outfield not only as when I as a very, very, very young player, but as the maintenance of the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Zamboni in hockey, right? It takes care of that. You don't have a Zamboni for baseball. Like the amount of like care it takes for like a field manager or whoever that person is to really care for that grass, keep it at the right length. It's, it's the same type of thought process that goes into like professional golf, right? Like
Mhm.
to really care for the outfield and because if the baseball hits that outfield and it hits like a divot or it hits like a mound or something and it flies the other way, like who's going to hear about it the next day?
The grass person.
All right. Do you want to close it out with favorite snack?
Oh, favorite snack.
Favorite snack to eat
So
when you're watching baseball?
So playing baseball as a kid, it was definitely sunflower seeds. Those were fun because you get the, on each other basically. And then there's one cool kid. He's like, yeah, I can do it all in my mouth, and he does like 5 in a row. And you're like, whoa, it's amazing. I would definitely say though,
spit out 5 seeds,
something like that. Yeah,
he's like chipmunk it.
Right, exactly. Just store it all in. I have to go classic. I'm a big fan of just buying a big, like if you're at a game, you get one of those big bag of peanuts,
Mhm.
and I would share it basically whoever I'm sitting next to, which is usually either my brother, my wife, or my dad, and being able to share and pass along, which is fun. So I'd say that's probably my favorite.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't share my food. That's a strict rule that I adhere to.
Back off.
I would encourage everybody to adhere to this. Don't share your food.
Well, not right now, Rich, but we're in COVID times.
Right. Yeah. Soft pretzel with cheese is my go-to.
Ooh, good choice. That's a great choice.
I can't turn it down whenever I see it spinning in the magical device that it spins in. I just say that's for me, and I devour it very selfishly by myself. And obviously, I wash it down with beer because that's what I do. This is the final week 4. So we're gonna finish out the whole baseball series by talking about one of our favorite topics. If we're not talking about beer and we're not talking about board games, we're usually talking about movies. So we're gonna talk about our favorite, I guess not favorite, but what we consider the best baseball movies, and maybe 1 or 2 of baseball movies that we feel like maybe fell short of
Committed an error.
Yeah, an error. Yeah. Yeah, Alex, since you're the baseball connoisseur, is that the right word? The baseball fan out of the 2 of us, we'll let you lead with what you feel like is one of the best baseball movies. Make it good. It's got to be good. What do you think is the best baseball movie?
I mean,
let's start with what's at the top of your list. Like, if you're going to talk about a baseball movie, what are we going to talk about? If it's a tie, it can be a tie.
All right. So the absolute top of my list, without a doubt, is Field of Dreams. By far.
Okay.
I think
All
that captures the American pastime feel. I mean, it's literally about people from the past. So it is pastime. I think that it is one of the few movies about baseball that I think does a good job in giving good subject matter to the fact that baseball is a generational game. Like, it's something that is taught, that is passed from, father to son, mother to daughter, mother to son, father to daughter. It's something that is handed down, and I think that the fact that they used that as a particular plot about Kevin Costner's character making amends with his father, I think was a very interesting way to like bridge that whole sense of what generational baseball is,
right,
or how generational it is,
right.
Plus
and in the process, freaking out almost every person in the world about entering a cornfield at
Cornfield?
any point in time. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a little better than Children of the Corn, from what I understand. Where like, hey, at least if I'm hearing a voice that just says, "Hey, build it," and they will come. Be like, build what? I don't know. Just build it, and then you get a vision of a baseball field. I'm like, okay, this isn't some sort of alien that's about to hack off my limb,
Okay.
or children who want to eat me alive or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm a little less concerned, though. Yes, it is a little somewhat frightening. Like almost comically so, especially like I think Costner did a good job. He's like, all right, what do you want, man?
Yeah, it is a movie that I don't feel, it doesn't insist upon itself when it comes to
No.
Yeah, it doesn't insist upon it. It doesn't really dig into what the whole cornfield thing is, and it doesn't have to. It honestly doesn't have to. I love that they just kind of leave that as what it is. They don't feel like they have to over-explain it or like rationalize it in any way. It's just kind of this like, it just is. I like that.
I was once told that it was probably one of the best modern American fairy tales. And someone once told me about the whole essence of like, it's interesting if you look at it from a faith standpoint, just like the not even like not the Christian faith per se, but like just the essence of having faith in like, I don't know if this is going to happen. I am going out on a limb, hacking down my corn, tilling the soil to do what? You're going to make, you're going to plant soybeans or something? No, I'm going to make a baseball field.
Okay.
Come again? You're going to build a what? A where?
Yeah.
So there's, but I love that moment in that movie, and it's weird realizing like, oh, I'm not far off from this guy, where he has that discussion with his wife about why he wants to build the field. And he says, I'm 36 years old, and he says something like, I'm scared to death of becoming my father, who never took a risk, or something, who never had a dream that he followed with all his life, or something along those lines. And I think he realized that he had to step out in faith to be like, okay, I've been told, I've been granted this vision. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. But yet it's there. I can't deny that this happened to me. And to see like how that happens. And even it happens with James Earl Jones later when they're traveling to the wherever, Chisholm, Minnesota, to find Moonlight Graham. And there's that moment when they're in the hotel room and Costner's character like has a newspaper and he's like, dude, do you know you're missing in Boston? And so he's like, oh crap, I gotta call my son. So he picks up the phone, and there's that great little moment where he kind of looks at, he just kind of looks over because Costner's left, and and Jones kind of chuckles, and he goes, "What do I tell him?"
Yeah, right.
And it's that like you can't explain it, and yet it is.
It makes sense. Yeah.
So that's what I love about that, because it doesn't. It's not meant to be a comedy. It's not meant to be something about someone winning a game. Like, that's a weird thing too. It's like one of the few baseball movies I know that has nothing to do with winning a game,
right?
Or a series, or.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's one of the very few sports movies that it's not. Would you consider it a sports movie even?
Yeah, I would consider it a sports movie.
It's a sports movie, but it has nothing to do with win or lose or even how you play the game. Like, it's not about the lessons learned in losing a game or anything. It's all about the community around, or not the community, I guess, but the philosophy really around baseball. It's like, I think and the family aspect of it, and the generational aspect of it. I think that's the secret. You have discovered the secret to what I think makes a good baseball movie. Is a baseball movie is a great baseball movie when it has nothing to do with baseball. Yeah. Right. And I don't even think it's like a marketing thing. I feel like it's just a natural aspect of the game that it just incorporates that mindset of like, hey, like, we're just all here to like hang out, have a good time, like throw a ball around and like have fun together, like let's play a game, where every other sport, it feels like has like evolved into this like win or lose or die trying, and not that baseball is immune from that, but
No.
Yeah.
However, you touch on something that's very unique to baseball, and I remember thinking about this for years after graduating from high school and getting into college, and more often than not, it was basketball, it was football, maybe lacrosse, and people would be like, baseball, baseball's boring. Who would want to watch baseball? Kind of
right,
yada yada yada.
right.
But I thought more about baseball, and you know what's so fascinating about that game is that it is the only major professional sport that is outside the realm of time.
Right. Yeah.
So like
right.
a team sport, there's golf and tennis, but those are basically it's one-on-one or against yourself, which is
right.
crazy about golf, which is cool. But baseball is a game of true accomplishment. Like, in order to win, you have to defeat your enemy. You cannot rely on time to slowly but surely, squeeze them out until they. Right, you can't. Yeah. So, like, for instance, if it's the Lakers versus the Timberwolves, you're up by 25 points. LeBron is at the helm. There's no way that the Timberwolves are going to come back. Like, it's done, and there's like 2 minutes left in the game. Down by 25 points, it ain't happening. Now, if you are down, and this happened like a couple years ago, the Mets were beating the Nationals. I think it was like 7-1 in the bottom of the ninth, and the Nationals scored like 8 runs and came back to win. Like you have to beat the team. You have to get 3 outs, and no matter what, you have to get 3 outs. And I like to say to people where it's not about the speed that's interesting about baseball. It's the drama, because so much can happen within that kind of thing. So in talking about like what Field of Dreams is, like you're saying, like the drama is the relationships. It's not in this case, like the it's not about the speed of baseball. If anything, like baseball is so we are gifted to have a sport that's lasted so long and frankly unchanged over the course of a history of America, where it's we're kind of like Las Vegas. We just love tearing it down, building something new, tearing it down, building something new.
Right.
Baseball still around. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So. The top of my list for movies.
Yeah. What do you got?
I feel like follows that same philosophy, right? Field of Dreams was a close second. The movie that spoke to me the most was Sandlot.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Which does the same thing, right? It's a movie about baseball, but it's not about baseball, which weirdly enough, James Earl Jones is in as well.
He's in both of them.
It's just now hitting me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I never put that together until just now.
Nor did I until now. That's funny. It's the same universe. Sandlot's a good choice. Give me some things about Sandlot that you love.
It's kind of the same stuff that you were talking about. It's the family aspect, right? Because the whole catalyst is the Babe Ruth baseball that I forget Smalls. I don't know his real name, but he steals from
Smalls.
Yeah, he steals from his father, right? So there's this generational concept, the same as with Field of Dreams, right? Like baseball is in the family. Baseball is a beloved kind of pastime and there's this ritual and there's this respect there that is violated, right? Because the kid wants to make friends more than he kind of respects the history behind the ball, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a bigger lesson in every movie that's about sports, right? None of it really hits home like Field of Dreams or Sandlot, where I feel like it just so seamlessly connects with each other, right? The group of friends that find themselves in a situation where they have to, they're connected by their love of the game, and they're connected by the fact that they just need to get this baseball to keep playing baseball. Like it's such a great concept, and you and I are both narrative thinkers, right? Like we know that you have to have a group of characters that work well together.
Oh, yeah.
And baseball, like you said in the last episode, or maybe it was the episode before that, I can't remember. Baseball lends itself to a lot of different types of characters, right?
Yep.
You have a lot of different personalities that really contribute to the game as a whole, right?
Yep.
It's not as limited as a physical sport as other sports are. So I think it lends itself to a better story overall when it comes to, a story like that, like Sandlot. It made the top of my list, number one, just because I loved watching it as a kid, and number two, just because I think it pulls together the same concepts we're talking about with Field of Dreams, the family generational aspect of the game, the love of the game, plus the narrative aspect that every story needs to really drive it home. So anyway, for me, I feel like it did it better than Field of Dreams did. So that's why it's
a really excellent choice. There is something with baseball where it's like, yeah, it really does bring all kinds of people together. And the Sandlot does a really good job in doing that. I think mainly because that kid doesn't know how to play.
Oh, yeah.
And yet he can learn. Yeah. And that's something I think about baseball, where because it's not completely dependent upon quickness, or brute strength, you have the ability to find different things that you can be good at, even if you're not particularly strong, tall, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. Good choice. Good choice, man.
Yeah. What were some like honorable mentions for you? Anything else that you remember?
42 for sure. Was an honorable mention,
which isn't a documentary, right?
It is not.
It's a
drama.
It is a drama. Okay,
it's a reinterpretation. They take some liberties, but I thought in particular, Chadwick Boseman obviously shines as Jackie, but Harrison Ford does a really good job as Branch Rickey.
Oh, I didn't even know Harrison Ford was in that.
Yeah, he's the owner, and he's kind of this wisecracking, really tough as nails guy.
Okay.
And he has a lot of very funny lines about how he kind of essentially exposes the inherent kind of racism or at the very least exclusion that a lot of these owners just kind of have without actually facing it. And and there's this whole thing where Harrison Ford, he's like, well, I want to sell more tickets, and if I get him on the board, it means more people from Brooklyn will buy more tickets. And I'm a Methodist, and well, Jackie's a Methodist, and so we're both Methodists. Like there's like this like
spot on Harrison Ford, and
spot on. Thank you. So he but he does a good job. So I've been that one I really enjoyed. Moneyball I really enjoyed. I thought that was
Moneyball's on my list too. Yeah,
that was fun. Though I sometimes debate upon the health of that kind of style of baseball-ism as a philosophy about essentially buying according to statistics, but
right, yeah, just kind of playing based off of strictly statistics instead of
another one that I really enjoyed is, at least as a child, though I don't know how it has aged, is Angels in the Outfield, aka all 90s 2000s Hollywood stars as young children or young adults. Like Matthew McConaughey, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in there. Okay. I'd say those are mine that I can at least think of right off the bat. So more may come later.
I do that. I just did that the other day. There's a guy at work that was worried. He had something coming up that he was worried about. It was like a meeting or something he had to report. And I found out, I work in a call center, so it's a big room. So I found out where he was, and I was like, hey, stand up. And he stood up. He's like looking around, and I stood up, and I go. It's kind of like my universal way of saying I believe in you.
Believe.
Like you can do it. It's like I wave my arms. And,
do you think? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I don't know if anybody gets it. That's the thing. It's like it's a toss up because if you weren't born in the 90s, then odds are you probably don't get understand what I'm doing.
Well, my question is like, if you did it at a Detroit baseball game or Florida, like would people join along and they'd be like, no, we're not doing what the Angels do.
Yeah, that's an Angels thing. That's not what we do.
This is the Tiger thing. I don't know what the Athletics do in Oakland.
That's a great observation, though. If he played for any other team, or sorry, if he was whatever he was for any other team, what would the signal be?
I mean, yeah, Lord help him if it's the Dodgers, because I feel like it'd just be everyone like running around the stadium. Or the Nationals? No idea. What do you do as the Nationals?
Seems pretty
Pledge allegiance. Well, we know what we do in Philly, though, right?
Oh yeah. That's a gesture that we can't do on the. That's a gesture that we can't do on this show. That's the Philly. I've been to the Philly stadium. I've been to a game there. It's those fans. Philadelphia fans are a different breed of fans, regardless of what sport it is. It's yikes, goodness gracious. I'm glad I was there as a Phillies fan, at least dressed as a Phillies fan. But yeah, there was some. Yeah, I mean, they threw snowballs at Santa Claus. Goodness gracious, that's the type of fan base that we're talking about. And
bigger question, snowballs.
Yeah,
snowballs for baseball.
No, sorry, I'm talking about football.
Okay.
Phillies fan. There's a famous Philadelphia Eagles game where the fans threw snowballs at Santa Claus.
Oh man.
Moneyball was on my list too.
Good choice.
There's something about that movie that really, it's kind of summarized in the end of that movie where, what's his name? Jonah Hill, right? When he's watching this film of the batter, this like overweight, big guy that's like hitting, he's watching film, right? It's towards the end of the movie, and he brings Brad Pitt into this film watching room, and they're watching this film, and the guy hits the ball and he's rounding first and he falls and trips and he starts crawling back to the first base, not realizing it's kind of embarrassing, right? He trips and falls and he's kind of embarrassed and crawling back to first base, and then doesn't even realize he hit a home run. That kind of summarizes that movie so well. That scene by itself, I think, is why I watched that movie so much, because it's such a great metaphor. So anyway, that's kind of why I returned to Moneyball a lot. I did also write down A League of Their Own with Tom Hanks and an all-star cast. My wife and I, in preparation for this, we were looking into A League of Their Own and the history of it. And obviously it's a story of World War II, which is kind of a spillover from last month's episode with Rob. I love the story, and obviously that's the iconic "There's no crying in baseball" line from Tom Hanks is great. But in reality, the history of all of that is pretty cool just by itself. You know, the fact that we had a lot of and Rob and I talked about this last month. The World War II was a war that involved everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting just to see the ripple effect of all of that, right? Even coming into baseball, where we have these female baseball players coming in and really kind of taking over the show and being the source of entertainment and keeping the sport alive while these people are away.
And that's something that's so rich about baseball history, is that it's so intertwined with American history since the Civil War, where case in point, almost every single societal advance in some capacity has somehow involved baseball for the most part in order to see that happen. Heck, you can see that with women playing there. I think about Jackie Robinson, the fact that his drafting into the Dodgers predated the civil rights movement by almost 2 decades. And yet he was also involved with that, in the 60s.
Yeah.
Last one I'll add, which is
Mhm.
also about family and doesn't have
Mhm.
to do with winning a game, is The Rookie. I love The Rookie.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys who haven't seen it, it's Dennis Quaid. He plays a older ball player who almost went pro, didn't end up coaching in high school, taught in Texas, I guess, and then ended up deciding that, hey, I'm gonna actually give it a shot. And I think he played for was either the Rays or the Rangers or I forget who, but
Yeah, I forget too.
but it's based on a true story, and he played for a couple of years. But yeah, he was the rookie. He was one of the oldest rookies, I think, at the time, which was. But it's a movie all about family. And in the midst of that, it's really endearing because he's a father of an 8-9-year-old kid, and yeah, it's quite a story.
I only had one other honorable mention that I need to mention, and it's called "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." It's a musical. I grew up as a Gene Kelly fan, who was a song and dance guy. He's a famous tap dancer, and he's in a lot of musicals. Singing in the Rain is the most famous one, but he did a few musicals with Frank Sinatra, and "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" was one of them.
Nice.
It was one of my favorite musicals growing up, and obviously circles around baseball. They're the famous song is O'Brien to Ryan to Goldberg. So their famous double play. Anyway, famous musical with Gene Kelly. Go check it out.
And for those in our younger audience, a musical is when you sing a song during the movie. And for those who are even younger, a movie is a stream of narrative that lasts for more than 10 seconds. Sorry, that's the cynic in me. It's not a TikTok.
It's like a really long TikTok video.
Yeah, it's like really long, not on repeat, and all original content. So you should check it out.
Man, yeah, yep. Take Me Out to the Ball Game if you like really old movies. that's one
classic. That's the word you're looking for. You're looking for a classic time to the ball game.
Yeah,
check it out.
I'm so happy to share, and I'm kind of upset to share this, but worst baseball movies that I feel like are out there. Because I'm such an Air Bud fan, I love the original Air Bud movie where the dog plays basketball. You can't beat it. It's such a good movie. I'm so upset that they took it to this level where we have Air Bud 7th inning fetch.
Oh man. Oh,
Air Bud 7th inning fetch.
Bad
if
dog.
You have yeah, that's a great summary.
That's what
honestly, it's your critique. Bad dog.
Bad dog.
Sit, boo boo, sit. Honestly, obviously the original movie where the dog can play basketball is a little far-fetched. I get that. That's not the point. At the end of Air Bud with the basketball, he doesn't end up playing with the Los Angeles Lakers and becoming the MVP of the league.
Wait,
at the
what
end
of the 7th inning fetch,
the ending, Buddy the dog is signed by the Anaheim Angels to play first base and wins the World Series MVP. A dog
sponsored by Disney. Well, the Angels are owned by Disney, right?
I know. I didn't know that.
Well, like that's my favorite too. Is thinking okay, so they got Angels in the outfield, and they have a dog in the infield. Who's catcher?
Yeah,
catcher?
Yeah, right.
Just come up with a name. We'll do it.
Goofy.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that makes one of the top. Sorry, I'm just gonna read another one. Rookie of the Year. I didn't think.
Oh yeah, that one was.
Honestly, it's all well and good until the final pitch. And if you don't remember, This is the classic scene where he peels off the thing on his glove, realizes his glove or something or other has something to do with his mom. I don't remember. He looks to his mom in the stands, who he can't talk to because he's on the pitching mound. Somehow they have this like non-verbal conversation, but verbal because you can read it. Yeah, right. And she goes, and she does this, it's classic. She goes, "Just float it." So the whole basis of the story is this kid has broken his arm, and somehow in the reconstruction phase of breaking his arm, he becomes this major league pitcher because he can like snap his arm really fast. And this something, and at the very end of the movie, sorry, no spoilers, but spoilers. He has a similar incident where he loses his ability to throw the ball really fast, but now he's like the pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. So like he looks to his mom in the stand. He's a kid. He's like 13 years old. Looks to his mom in the stands, and she's just like, "Just float it. Just do that." So he goes all out with the float it mentality and decides he's just going to like underhand pitch this. Super change up. I mean, we're talking like 15 mile per hour, like change up that he just floats and ends up striking the guy out because it was so unexpected. Anyway, it's kind of those were two movies that I just feel like they don't do the game of baseball any justice.
Now I'm trying to remember. Well, I think my pick would probably be Angels in the Outfield, if only because I have a sense that it has not aged well. I think.
Oh, really?
But I could be wrong. I didn't really see many bad baseball movies, at least growing up, that I can remember.
I'll give you some more time because I have a third movie. It's a little movie called Ed in 1996.
Was that with a monkey?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I remember seeing trailers of that and being, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's starring Matt LeBlanc. There's not a lot more that needs to be said about that. It's a monkey playing baseball is what the movie's about, and it's a relationship between Matt LeBlanc and Ed,
The monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of any. However, I do see one on this list, and it's called Battlefield Baseball, which looks like a classic bad movie. It is a horror movie.
Okay, it's a horror movie.
Yeah. All right. So you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Battlefield Baseball is a tough game. It doesn't end until all the members on the opposing team are dead. In this game, the Guido High team is composed of blue-faced zombies, and their opponents on the Cedo High team know they don't have a chance at beating them unless they can bring back a star pitcher who has a lethal pitch called the Super Tornado.
Okay.
Directed... Wow, that was directed in 2003. It has a 5.8 on IMDb. I've seen worse.
Yeah.
If there was a baseball story that you could tell,
yeah,
that hasn't been made, what would you do?
I did come across a story about Jackie Mitchell, a tall left-handed 17-year-old in 1931 who established herself basically as a baseball legend by striking out both Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig in the same game. While she was pitching for a semi-pro team in Chattanooga, she was tasked with facing both Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and she struck both of them out, the Babe and Lou Gehrig.
Cool. I
can't strike out Babe Ruth. Or Lou Gehrig, like who was this female ball player that struck out the great Bambino? Yeah, that'd be cool.
At least on my end, I think I would have to go with the no one ever knows any stories about the Negro Leagues, and I'd love to know like Satchel Paige or any of these guys that were considered frankly as good if not better than Babe or Gehrig. But that we're on a more of a smaller market audience, and they just never got well known.
Right.
Yeah, and I've always wondered, like, it's interesting that once when Jackie got drafted and signed for the Dodgers and more players, from the Negro Leagues ended up playing for the MLB, and then the Negro Leagues went to, they closed, they shut down, they folded. That part of the story is always interesting to me too. The fact that it was hampered by financial difficulties, I think, as an organization, but at the same time, like the MLB era quickly made things, I think, close down faster with that. And it's interesting at the MLB definitely benefited more from gaining those players to have them play, and it definitely came at the cost of the Negro Leagues. So that would, to me, is always an interesting narrative to talk about, just in general. I don't know the exact players, but just knowing that there were these cities that had these teams. The Indianapolis Clowns was one.
No way.
But
the Clowns?
Yeah, the Clowns. And I think it was the New York Cubans was one of theirs. There's all kinds of really interesting ones. So it's just it's interesting knowing that there were these fields that had these games, and family came and saw the games and that kind of thing. And now it's all history and gone, but it was there, it existed. So I would be very curious to know about the Clowns. Why'd you name them the Clowns of all things?
So this is another question that I should have asked you about during the pitch and catch episode. What is it about baseball and socks, the color of your socks, that's so important? Because when we're talking about, I'll just tie this in with everything here. So we talked about a league of their own. We talked about the female baseball replacements. Basically, there was a female or all girls type of league that existed back in the 40s or 50s, that time frame. And in South Bend, specifically South Bend, Indiana, where I have a history, I lived there for a little while. That's where my wife is from. The girls team there was a very successful girls team there that was called the Blue Sox. And obviously we have the Chicago White Sox, the Boston Red Sox.
Yep.
And then I'm looking up the Negro League teams. I do see the Montgomery Gray Sox. And there the Los Angeles White Sox.
There's also the Durham Black Sox, I think, for a time. I think.
Is it? It just seems so interesting to me. This obsession with the color of what socks you are.
Hey, well, okay, so this is my theory. So also was the red stockings.
And they're all spelled with X.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But they're all spelled with X.
Yeah.
Every single last one of them.
Yeah, it's great. It's simple.
Okay.
It's two less letters you have to print on your shirt. Well, the Cincinnati Reds used to be the Red Stockings as well, so you basically add that in there.
Okay.
My theory is because the socks were such a distinguished part of the uniform back in the day. They were up to the calf, kind of thing. It's so different. If you look at fielders now, they don't really show the socks that prominently. So I think that's part of it, where it just came from that thing. And then, heck, you yourself said too, where, people are superstitious about their clothes, about washing their socks. So
yeah,
I don't know, maybe that's where it came from.
It's just weird.
Yeah. The most epic though one I remember ever seeing was 2004 championship series when Kurt Schilling was the pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, and he had just had surgery on his ankle a couple weeks ago. And while he was pitching, the stitch, I guess, tore a little bit. So all of a sudden, his sock turned blood red. It actually became a red sock. And
really,
and the cameras are zooming in on it, and oh, this is amazing, kind of thing. But legend come to life, man. Like I said, baseball is the sport of legends. So it just adds to the. There's also the Bowie Bay Sox, which is a minor league team, I think.
There's also an obsession, I guess, in the Negro League about giants. You have the Birmingham Giants. Yep. You have the Ansonia Cuban Giants. The Washington Elite Giants. The the Chicago American Giants, the Chicago Columbia Giants, the Chicago Giants, the Leland Giants, the Coles American Giants, the Miami Giants. Yeah, a lot of teams.
Giants.
Yeah, a lot of Giants. Giants and Sox, which kind of paints the picture of just a big sock.
That's what I want. The Indianapolis Giant Sox. You ever heard of the Red Sox?
Yeah,
and the White Sox.
No, but everybody is so comfortable talking about these giant socks. But I mean, you just know that there's giant pairs of underwear out there somewhere too.
That is uncomfortable. Well, or my personal favorite is the Indianapolis Sock Giants. These giants made of socks everywhere, running around.
Yeah.
Their number one weapon against them is detergent.
Oh man, we didn't do our 7th inning stretch this episode. Do you want to stretch?
All right, together. Here. Dum 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 dum.
I don't care. For the home team. I go out at the old game.
Well done. Sung like a tenor.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. This has been a fun episode. A fun month of shooting with Alex here. Alex, welcome back again. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, Rich. It's good to be back.
We'll be back next month talking about God knows what. But you know what? You'll be here to listen to it. I'm fairly confident. So that wraps up our whole conversation on baseball. I learned a lot, honestly. I really did. So I appreciate your insight, and I appreciate all of you fans out there being patient with me as I talk about the sport and everything. So yeah. If you didn't get a chance to see the earlier episodes, go check them out. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe, guys, if you like the content, if you like what we're doing. Click. It's a simple button. It gives you an update on everything that we're posting. We're posting weekly now. So if you want an update on when we post, just click the subscribe button. It's very simple. Just do that, and you'll get an update every time we post one of our new episodes. So, and you'll be one of the first people to realize what we're talking about next week. So, we look forward to that. But until next time, guys,
be happy,
brew hoppy,
and game on.
Game on. Cheers.
Cheers.
All hail baseball.